Ain stands before the shining crystal, feeling the energy in the air. He looks around, making sure no one is nearby, and then focuses on the stone. In the background, the king and Olivia watch intently. Olivia silently stays behind the king, as she was ordered. Above him hovers a mysterious figure radiating a divine presence, and the boy suddenly finds himself in an unreal space. Confused, he listens as the creature explains his death and its absurdly pathetic cause, and learns that he is about to be reborn. He is brought to the life gacha machine. His next life will be decided by luck alone. The boy approaches the gacha machine and hesitates, uncertain. Pushed by the goddess, he spins it. The golden capsule falls rare and shining. Inside, he finds a scrap of paper with an unfamiliar skill. After breaking down the toxin EX, he freezes, puzzled, trying to understand its meaning. He looks at this skill with distrust and screams in despair. The goddess proudly smiles and explains its rare power against toxins and bacteria. Before he can object, a portal opens beneath him. She calmly sends him away, wishing him luck in the world of stats, monsters, and magic, and he is pulled inside. He panics as his new life begins. In a quiet room of a large estate, the baby wakes up alone at the table. A breeze stirs the curtains, and he slowly reaches for the bowl of food. Still stunned, he wonders if the strange events that just happened were only a dream, perhaps the moment of his rebirth. 5 years have passed since his reincarnation, and although he is now a young boy, clumsiness still does not go away. But he decides to try the strange skill he got from the gacha. Calmly finishing his drink, he activates X-tox and decomposition. For the first time, the experiment worked. The bacteria were completely neutralized. His ability turned out to be real. Irritated by the side effects, headache, and exhaustion, he decides not to use this skill at all. He called it useless and angrily slammed the table. Suddenly, he remembered training with his father and rushed outside. In the yard, the knights are already training, and he hurries to join them. Aim is training with concentration. Swinging a wooden sword to the last drop of strength, he tries hard, but his technique still needs work. Father Logos, a mighty general of the great kingdom, watches strictly and advises more training, and Ain nervously thanks him, fully aware of the high expectations placed on him. Ain reflects on his new privileged life and realizes he was reborn into the Roundheart family, influential rulers of a powerful port region. Under his father's watchful eye during training, he increasingly believes that his rare gacha prize determined his noble fate. Nearby, Lady Camilla watches with a gentle smile, while the young knight apprentice politely greets Logos. Logan proudly praises Grint, saying he looks like a true knight, now that Grint's training is prepared. Camilla and Logan stepped back to support him, and Ain was told to continue sword training on his own. Grint confidently steps away, and Ain silently watches, hiding his mixed feelings. Ain explains that Grint is his younger half-brother, born from their father's second wife. Although he is a year younger, he has a rare and powerful ability. A holy knight honored throughout the kingdom, while Ain bitterly reflects on his X-toxin decomposition, which seems useless next to it and casts him in his brother's shadow. Ain trains alone, gripping his sword tightly, and despair grows inside him. He knows his father is fair, but deep down he sees Grint shining brighter in everyone's eyes, and this comparison eats him up from within. Overcome with rage and uncertainty, he strikes with all his might, pouring all those suppressed emotions into one blow. Opposite a fully armored training dummy, Ain looks with unwavering determination. He glances around, tense, plotting a plan in his mind. Although he knew that this armored figure was almost impossible to move, he still charged at it, shouting at the top of his lungs. Nearby knights watched with a smile and reminded him that it was solid metal, and Ain clenched his fist. He understood it was unwise, but that was exactly why he had to try. Ain lunges at the armored dummy with all his strength, but the blow backfires. The sword bounces off, and he falls painfully to the ground. The knight reminds once again, it is impossible. Ain sits clutching his hand with pain and disappointment, quietly withdrawing, looking at his trembling fingers and not knowing what to feel. Filled with determination to impress his father and Camilla, Ain immerses himself in training. Surrounded by mountains of books, he vows to work harder than anyone. Butler enthusiastically praises Ain for his unwavering dedication to training and learning. He assures that even the servants believe he has enormous potential. Without a smile, grateful, but deep down he hopes that their faith in him will come true. When he hears his mother's voice, no joy ignites within him. He quickly rushes to her room, filled with excitement after quietly knocking and hearing her. He answers, he straightens his clothes and smiling, goes inside. Ain enters, and Olivia, his mother, though she is a mom, greets him so warmly that his heart immediately melts. Her youthful appearance and gentle aura make him feel her more like an older sister, especially since he still remembers his past life. Olivia gently hugs him and sincerely praises his efforts. She says that he always tries, jokes that he smells like books, and he blushes with embarrassment, but her words soothe him. He really is doing well. Anne asks about Olivia's work and learns that Olivia carried everything on herself, although it was supposed to be done together. He feels bitter that his father does not help, and quietly admires how capable and beautiful his mother is, feeling a mixture of awe and awkward admiration. Olivia handed on his status card. Finally, he reads what he has been eagerly waiting for. He sees his characteristics and title: House of the Round Heart, eldest son, and there are 2 skills listed: Toxin Breakdown X and a new one, Training Gift. Ain is shocked and burning with curiosity, thanks Olivia for the status card, but doubts whether his stats are really good. She gently reassures him, for a 5-year-old this is quite normal, just curiosity about a new skill. Training Gift, she explains, it strengthens the body, reduces pain and fatigue, and adds endurance, and she realizes this is a pretty good status. Olivia enthusiastically praises Ain, saying that no one knows how hard he tries better than she does. He's touched by her words. Ain listens as she changes the subject. It turns out his grandmother has a task for him, and then she suggests they go for a walk together. He doesn't even ask why his mother insists on doing it herself. Doubts fill his head. He blames himself and thinks that as the eldest son he is not worthy of this. Fearing that she will leave because of his weaknesses, he clenches his fist, and guilt chokes him. Olivia gently takes his hand, feeling this pain. Olivia gently calls Ain her special knight and asks if he will keep her company. His face lights up with joy, and he agrees without hesitation, sincerely wanting to be by her side. Olivia and Annie enter the merchant's shop to choose tea. The seller, seeing her, froze in surprise and immediately pulled out his best varieties. When they sat down, I suddenly noticed something strange among the goods: magical stones. He, intrigued, immediately asks about them, clearly captivated. The merchant says that magical stones come from monsters and pulse with powerful energy. They are often used in rituals, equipment, or jewelry. Interested? AINN can hold one. As soon as he grabbed it, a strange reaction occurred. The stone began to glow brightly in his hands and shocked everyone. Ain looks at the glowing magical stone, wondering if it will taste as good as it smells. Curiosity takes over. Although he understood it was silly, he secretly licked it. No one notices, but his heart races wildly, and he is unsure if something irreversible just happened. Ain froze in surprise. The taste of the magical stone was incredibly sweet, and he, filled with joy, glowed, holding it like a precious treat. Olivia notices his reaction and asks if everything is okay. He awkwardly denies it, trying to hide the strange truth. Olivia chooses 3 tea, and the merchant grateful smiles and gives her a magical stone as a gift. Hank gladly agrees, but as they are about to leave, he notices something strange. The yellow glow of the stone fades, and he looks at it, puzzled. The next day during training, AINN suddenly notices something strange. His strength suddenly exploded. With one sweep, the blade cut sharper than ever, and the knights nearby froze in astonishment. They had no idea that something inside him had changed. With a powerful strike, Ain's blade breaks through the armored mannequin, something he had never been able to do before. Stunned by his own strength, he realizes that this is abnormal. Ain sighs with relief. He is unharmed. But after his strike, everyone froze in amazement. The wooden sword cracked, and the training mannequin shattered into pieces. As the dust settles, Ain stands in the middle, quietly processing what just happened. The armored mannequin lies split in half, cut cleanly, as if by a blade, and he cannot stand still, stunned by his own strength. Someone among them shouts in shock that the young lord has succeeded, and lifts his head, not yet understanding what he has just done. With a wooden sword, he sliced the iron armor in half with one blow. One of the knights shouted in shock, confirming what he saw, and immediately after, a status window appeared with Ain's name, his stats, and skills. His strength had sharply increased. In the carriage, the atmosphere grew cold. Ain sat on pins and needles, looking at his mother's cold silence. She was clearly upset. No one spoke the reason aloud. Panics tried to calm her, thinking that something specific had ignited her anger, but silence would solve nothing. At the noble assembly, Logus, Ain's father, loudly announced his younger son Grint as the heir to the Round Heart family. And to make matters worse, he also announced Grin's engagement to the Marquis's daughter, even though the boy was only 4 years old. Ain is silent, but inside he is boiling with irritation. His mother apologizes because she knows he was pushed aside and says that he will have to endure it for now. Ain hides his disappointment behind a smile. He doesn't want his mother to worry. He decides to work even harder so that his father will finally accept him, although people attribute his recent act with the sword to worn-out armor and iron suspects something else. especially since everything changed after he licked that mysterious stone. When their cart approaches the destination, this thought does not leave him as they arrive at the place. Ain froze in amazement. Before him stood a huge, exquisite mansion unlike any he had seen before. A sculpture like a silent guardian watches the entrance and makes the mansion even more formidable. It is immediately clear they have stepped into the world of nobility. Ain and his mother froze in admiration at the scale of the mansion, and Olivia calmly remarked that it looked more like a royal palace. Olivia leads Ain forward and quietly asks him to follow her. She knows very well what pressure from people awaits him. Ain could not go to the party. Each family was allowed only one child, and Grinta was already chosen. Ain's mother tries to persuade him, but they understand that it was Camilla's cunning plan to exclude Ain. Although Ain was not allowed to the party, he seemed not to be upset. Watching his mother argue for him, he realized that the event itself did not interest him. Instead, his gaze was fixed. Behind the balcony stretched a beautiful garden. As soon as he stepped onto the balcony, the grandeur and elegance of this place captivated him. The quiet view lifted his spirits, and it seemed that a simple walk here would make him happy even during the celebration. Hearing Ain's words, the servant quickly bowed and promised to inform the Archduke, while Ain himself seemed more enchanted by the garden than by the party itself. With a quiet smile, he admired the flowers around. Once he thought they were as beautiful as his mother, and when she gently asked if he was really okay not to attend the event, he simply nodded for him. This quiet moment among the flowers was quite enough. Ain, smiling broadly, took his mother's hands and said that flowers made him much happier than any party. Moved, she hugged him tightly, feeling his warmth and sincerity. For a moment she forgot that they were guests in a strange house, and this small gesture was enough to fill her heart with peace. When the Archduke gave permission, the butler approached Ain and his mother and informed them that someone would guide them through the garden, and they thanked him. A young girl entered and calmly greeted everyone. Looking at Ain, she curiously asked if he was the eldest in the Round Heart family, and her appearance immediately changed the mood, as if announcing the start of a new conversation. The girl introduced herself as Clyme, granddaughter of Count August, head of the August family. With a gentle smile and reserved posture, she quietly spoke about her noble origin. This quietly caught Ain by surprise. Her status and presence stunned him. He hesitated a little but still approached and introduced himself as Kling, interested in her appearance. Clyme, reserved and polite, apologized for the mistake her family had caused earlier. After a brief awkward silence between them, she solemnly offered to guide Ain and Olivia through the garden, kindly inviting them to enjoy the walk. As they stroll through the exquisite garden, Ain is enchanted by the shining flowers and says it is mystical. Clyme gracefully leads the way, and Olivia quietly admires the surroundings. Although Ain is impressed, he is more moved by simply being near Olivia, the one he truly values. The group continues to explore the glowing garden, warming in the rays of the Sunday sunset, and everyone is clearly impressed that the inner courtyard seems even more enchanting than the outside, and Clyme notes that the view becomes especially beautiful precisely at sunset. In the great hall, the noble quietly whispered about Ain and his connection to the Round Heart family. Rumors about Whisper spread quickly. Some were impressed by his holy knight talent, while others immediately compared him to his older brother. Meanwhile, Clyme walks silently ahead as if the gossip does not touch her. For her, Ain stands out not because of strength or reputation, but his tenderness is exactly what she noticed more than any titles or rumors. She is not entirely enchanted. Compliments pour in without hesitation and completely caught her off guard. Embarrassed but flattered, she froze for a moment. And the group shifts their gaze to the glowing blue rose. Before them appeared a rare wonder, the blue flame rose. Clyme explains why it is so valuable and rare, explaining that its blooming requires incredibly precise, almost perfect conditions, and Ain listens, holding his breath, fascinated both by the flower itself and by how much Clyme knows about it. Clyme calmly explains that the thorns of the glowing blue rose are soaked with a deadly poison, so powerful that even one thorn can kill up to 1,000 people. She adds that the name Blue Flame Rose comes from the burning sensation caused by its toxin. Ain looks shocked. He realizes how dangerous something so beautiful can be. Olivia intervenes and says that despite the danger, the flower can become a true precious gem. When Ain asks if that means forcing it to be something it is not, Olivia explains it is about making it a true treasure, not a fake. Clyme explains that if it is possible to completely extract all the poison from the blue flame rose, it will itself turn into a precious stone, and Olivia adds that the poison of this flower can crystallize things. They say he will become the most beautiful stone ever known, the star crystal, because its glow resembles the night sky and the petals shimmer like stars. Ayan learns that purifying this rose is extremely difficult and expensive. They say there are only 2 such roses in the entire kingdom of Heir, and Olivia admits that she spent half of the region's annual taxes on purifying one. This shocks Ayan. How truly precious and rare it is. Ayan began to recall how people once admired his rare gift, Poison Decomposition X. He could neutralize any toxin or poison, but despite this, side effects always made him dizzy and weak, so it was hard to use. Now, standing before Climb, he quietly rejects some thought within himself, perhaps that he is good for nothing or that his ability is worthless, and to change the mood, asks her if she wants to see the star crystal, as if hinting that he can still do something meaningful. Ayan finally understands what he must do and, despite all warnings, reaches out and grabs that dangerous blue rose known for its deadly poison. Clan and Olivia panic and shout for him to stop, but at that moment light bursts from Ayan's body, his power activates, and the scene fills with tension and drama as his Poison Decomposition X begins to work. Ayan activates his ability and enters a purification state, suspended among bubbles as if underwater. He feels the poison leaving his body like a sip of mint soda, but this time something troubles him. He does not feel the same as last time. Although the process works, something feels different, and it does not heed the girl's warnings. He tightly grips the poisonous rose, his hand glows brightly. He focusedly launches his unique ability, confidently recalling that it is most effective against poison, and resolutely believes now he can finally prove that he was always prepared for this very moment. With a quiet smile, Ayan gazes at what lies in his palm. The purified rose glows with a rare, piercing radiance and beauty. He holds the bintang crystal, the legendary gem that appears only when all the poison has vanished from the flower. Climb, impressed by Ayan's bravery, cannot believe that he managed to touch and cleanse such a dangerous flower, kneeling down. Ayan modestly extends to her a crystallized rose and says that he brought exactly what she so strongly desired. The gesture overwhelms her. She freezes in shock, speechless at what she sees. Ayan kneels before Climb and extends a crystallized rose, made by his own hands. Silently, with a calm smile on his face, he extends a gift that signifies not only his strength but also his devotion. Climb looks surprised and touched, and one of the women nearby looks on with amazement and stands up. Ayan worries whether Climb will laugh at him. Because of these words, he falls into despair and is ashamed that he gave in to the impulse, his face burning with shame, and he nervously steps back. Instead, Climb is completely stunned. Her cheeks are burning. She tightly presses her hands to her chest and does not know how to react to this unexpected situation. The boy shyly extended a small gift. After a moment of hesitation, the girl finally accepted it. Their hands touched for a moment and both blushed, feeling a quiet warmth between them. Under the moonlight, the girl smiled warmly, pressing the small gift to herself. Among blooming roses, she accepted it with joy, and her face filled with quiet happiness. In the moonlit garden, Ayan shyly extended a handmade gift, and everyone around looked at him with admiration. The girl named Climb accepted it warmly, and soon Ayan asked for another to give to his mother. The evening deepened, and the air was filled with gratitude and quiet smiles. Both families savored this peaceful moment before parting. Climb decisively told Ayan that she no longer needed to speak to him so formally. The tone left no room for objection. He, embarrassed but smiling, agreed. The night was coming to an end, guests were gradually leaving, and Ayan stood next to his mother and realized that his father was late. Ayan's mother asked about her husband, and it turned out that he had left earlier for another party. Shocked and hurt, she froze in silence until the truth was revealed to Ayan. Lowering his gaze, he thought painfully whether his father really saw nothing valuable in him. Ayan's mother gently asked if he still cared about his father. He hesitated, tormented by feelings. Although he was grateful to have been raised, he could not forgive how his father treated his mother, hearing his son's words. Ayan's mother gently smiled, touched by his sincerity. Suddenly, she decisively took his hand and said they were leaving. She could no longer allow him to endure such pain. Ayan's mother smiled, leading him away from the castle. With determination in her eyes, she promised to take him to the most beautiful place in all their land. Under the calm night sky, Mother Ayan took off her ring. He said she no longer needed it. She smiled gently, quietly made a phone call to arrange their departure, and then told Ayan that they would return to the city port together. As they were returning home under the night sky, Ayan felt comfort beside his smiling mother. But when the carriage did not stop, he was overcome with unease. His mother gently asked him to wait a little longer, and behind her calm expression hid something he did not yet understand. Ayan looked outside, and he was overwhelmed with embarrassment. The city was in chaos. People were screaming and fleeing in panic amid the rumble and noise. In the middle of the streets, a strange mechanism rose. Its ominous presence left Ayan frozen in shock. A huge military ship emerged from the harbor, its cannons gleaming under the moonlight. The The crowd froze in awe and fear, waves crashed against the docks. The power and presence of the ship dominated the night. Other Einen went outside, stunned by the sight of the huge ship approaching the port. Townspeople panicked, they screamed upon seeing soldiers in armor. They began to descend from the ship, and their very appearance said something very serious was about to happen. Anne and his mother found themselves face to face with rows of soldiers in armor, lined up in a perfect rank. Ain became anxious. His mother tried to comfort him, but the tension grew suddenly. A mysterious figure approached and addressed Ain directly. A knight in shining armor stepped forward and removed her helmet. Beneath it was a gentle face. She introduced herself as Christina Warnstein and respectfully greeted Ain. Thus their meeting began. I never guessed that the knight was not an enemy until I saw how beautiful Christina was. Christina looked angrily at Olivia and explained that they had sailed on the ship to return Princess Olivia home, leaving Anne surprised by the true purpose of their arrival. Olivia promised Anna that she would explain everything later. Together with Christina, they boarded the ship. The path led them to a luxurious mansion under the moonlit sky to the home of the Grand Archduke. In the silence of the estate, Count August, the head of the family, discussed the latest events with his granddaughter. She agreed with his thoughts and sincerely thanked for the precious gift from Ain. Although the Count acknowledged the influence of the Round Heart family, Count August sighed. He was troubled by the thought that this family might not keep their word about who would become the next head of the family. He said to Climb, prepare for what is coming. All eyes fell on Benoit Ishtar, the only kingdom on the continent, while the Count explained the difficult path they would have to take. The Count persistently explained that Ishtalak is a wonderful, united kingdom that surpasses theirs in every way. He revealed the truth. Olivia is actually from Ishtalak, the daughter of the current king, Silviard von Ishtalak. Finally, her true identity was revealed. She is Olivia von Ishtalak, the second princess of Ishtalak. And they were shocked when they realized that Olivia is a royal person. So it turns out that it is a nobleman. The revelation stunned everyone. Olivia apologized to Anne for hiding her royal status from her. Anne was still puzzled and wondered why the princess would marry into the Round Heart family. Olivia hugged Anne and said that she just did what was necessary, while Christina looked at them with a serious gaze. Olivia calmed Anne, promising to tell more when the time comes, and he accepted her answer. Christina noticed that Olivia behaved much more relaxed and cheerful than usual. The group whispered about that special crystal that Ain gave, and Christina realized it was not just an ordinary gift but a rare star crystal. Christina, smiling, remarked that giving a star crystal is a proposal. In Olivia, everyone else froze, shocked and speechless from the sudden realization. Ain panicked when he realized that he had accidentally claimed rights over her by giving the star crystal. She happily accepted it. Everyone else was just trying to understand the situation, and Ain remained blushing and confused by what had just happened. Ain learned about the water chariot, a unique transport of Ishtalaka, which moves thanks to special stones. Olivia proudly hugged him and praised his intelligence, and Christina, impressed by his knowledge, was convinced that he was very smart. Christina told everyone to rest before we arrive in Ishtalaka. I almost blurted out secrets from his past life, but Olivia proudly embraced him. The group enjoyed a peaceful trip, savoring food together. I relax, take a deep breath, and prepare for the new chapter that is already at the doorstep. Ain, Olivia, and Christina arrived at the station on a luxurious steam train, and as soon as they stepped onto the platform, they were greeted by a huge crowd loudly chanting, and they were stunned by the magnificent reception that awaited them. Anne was amazed by Ishtalaka, not only its advanced technologies but also the diversity of people. He saw people. Half-humans, fairies, and other races live together. This makes the kingdom even more amazing. Ain and the others froze with admiration, looking at the stunning city of Ishtalaka with its towering castle and magical landscapes. Everything seemed incredible and majestic, so they were silent with admiration. Christina proudly declared that she was returning as the vice-captain of the knights. Anne was sure she looked impressive, but Olivia joked and called her clumsy. Then Christina invited Olivia and Anne to enter the great castle and warned them to watch their step. Olivia teased Anne to cheer him up after the recent chaos. Christina led them through the castle. She admitted that she had not informed the king about Olivia's sudden return. It was so unexpected. Olivia tried to lighten the mood by teasing Ain while they followed Christina through the castle. Christina explained that she did not have time to tell the king about Olivia's return because the orders came too quickly. Christina whispered that the king was in a meeting, and they debated whether to interrupt him. Olivia confidently entered and announced to her father that she had returned. He caught everyone by surprise in the council hall. And with trembling in your chest, you stand before the formidable King Ishtalaki. When Anne realized how important this meeting was, the king filled the room with his presence and deeply impressed Anne. Anne stood next to Olivia while the king carefully examined him. The king watched Anne's calmness under pressure with surprise and realized before him was no ordinary child, and Anne meanwhile stood in awe. Finally, he sees such a mighty ruler in person. "I'm nervous." He approached the king, introduced himself, and gave his old surname Roundart. Olivia stood nearby and silently supported him during the formal introduction. King Silver Fanish Talaka directly tells Ain that he is not only a king but also his grandfather. Ain is surprised but happy, and the king smiles warmly at him. Ain is introduced to Lloyd Galatia, the one who administers justice and brings peace to Ishtalaki. The king laughs and calls Lloyd his father, and she feels a bit uncomfortable recalling his old family name. Olivia announced that she is divorced and will not return home anymore. King calmly accepts this. But Lloyd is stunned and immediately asks what the reason is, while everyone around reacts strongly to this news. Olivia says that the main reason she is not returning is that she does not believe Ain would be happy staying in Heim, and this shocks everyone, especially the king and Lloyd. The king instantly stopped the meeting and sternly ordered, "Everything discussed here must remain a secret," and sternly orders Olivia to tell everything later, after which he commands to call Warren and Kadima. Warren and Kadima enter the room. The atmosphere instantly changes. Their presence radiates an insanely strong aura that unsettles Ainn. Despite this, Lloyd tries to calm the boy, assuring him that Warren is just an experienced knight and everything will be over quickly. Meanwhile, Warren confidently snaps his fingers, ready for the mission. Ainn could hardly believe her eyes. The talking cat turned out to be actually the eldest daughter of the king, Kadama von Ishtalaka. She insists strongly that because of the powers inherited from the mother, he cannot be excluded from the inheritance. Olivia adds that there is no need to worry about him anymore, and Kadima, straightforward and practical, asks the king for permission to personally explain everything to Ain. Prime Minister Warren Lark begins to reveal the truth. Olivia's marriage was not for love nor for alliance, but for the sea crystal, a rare resource of the kingdom of Heim, which Ishtalaka coveted. These crystals from the bones of sea monsters are necessary for creating magical instruments in Ishtalaka, and when Ain listened, he realized that what he once considered ordinary magical tools from Heim were actually much more powerful and valuable than he could have imagined. Warren continues the story. It turns out that the magical devices of Ishtalaka were stronger because they contained rare minerals of sea crystals, which were once abundant but now almost gone. Other peoples used weaker materials, but Ishtalaka invented special methods to enhance the power of the crystals, and therefore the magical devices became widespread throughout the kingdom. When the supplies dwindled, Ishtalaka went to seek allies to obtain more. Eventually, all this led to the wedding of Olivia and Heim. In exchange for the crystals, Ishtalaka promised to protect Heim. Warren reminds that these political, strategic, and difficult duties are the burden of the nobility, and when the conversation turns to the search for new sources of sea crystals, Olivia calmly interrupts them and reminds that her work with those sources is already completed, and that divorce does not mean renouncing duty. This revelation shocks everyone, and Ain realizes that his mother's role was much greater than he thought, and was connected not only with diplomacy but also with the very survival of Ishtalaku's magical power. Olivia speaks before the royal council and passionately explains how, in cooperation with merchants and adventurers, she found a new source of sea crystals, but her research led to a completely unexpected discovery. Beyond Heim to the west stretched an island state named Euro. There, crystals that once lay on the sea floor surfaced, and shock filled the room when the council grasped the consequences. This discovery could change the balance of power and restore the dwindling magical resources of Ishtalaka. Ain realizes how devoted his mother was, how much time and effort she put into her duties, how much suffering she endured, and how much unjust treatment she had to bear after Green's birth. She never stopped smiling. Everyone respected her, admired her grace and kindness, and she always conducted herself with quiet strength. Even while fulfilling her duties as a noblewoman and mother, she never forgot him, always finding moments to be near and warm him with her warmth. Ain feels guilt. He realizes that he still cannot repay his mother for everything she did for him. When he apologizes, others silently watch, understanding the weight of his words. King gently declines his apology, implying that an AINN for them, everything, precious life worth any effort and sacrifice, no matter how hard they may be. Olivia gently embraces Ain, her expression soft and full of warmth, and in that quiet moment she feels only gratitude for having met him, for his existence, and for the bond that connects them as mother and son. Ain looks at his mother with admiration, feeling deep respect for all her hard work. Everyone around her noticed changes. Olivia became not only more beautiful but also stronger, and the king, impressed by her dedication, decided to seize the moment to acknowledge her efforts. Warren steps forward with the papers and says that the queen has already approved everything. The king responds with a satisfied smile. The king solemnly sits before the gathered and orders everyone to sign the document lying before him. Olivia gracefully steps forward and signs, followed one by others. Even Kadima joins enthusiastically. Her cheerful mood dispelled the tension while the formalities continued. Ain looks confused, not understanding what the document actually means. Meanwhile, Warren and Lloyd prepare to finalize this as official witnesses before the throne. King rises authoritatively and with a voice that leaves no doubt announces his decision. Under the royal name Silvert von Ishtalika, he solemnly proclaims Ain a recognized member of the royal family of Ishtalika. This announcement stuns Ain. He stands bewildered, unable to comprehend that from now on his life has changed forever. Ain recalls his past, born the son of a minor nobleman in a distant country, and his relatives treated him as if he were worthless. And now, before the entire royal court, he is proudly called Ain von Ishtalika, and in one night the boy who was once forgotten in his lineage was recognized as a true member of the magnificent royal family of Ishtalika. Before the great throne, Ain froze and could not believe his eyes. The mighty voice of the king thundered through the hall, and he was declared the heir to the throne of Ishtalika. The boy who once lived unnoticed now stands as the heir to the most powerful and invincible kingdom. In the bustling capital of Ishtalika, news of Olivia's return after the divorce spread instantly, and the townspeople whisper excitedly, guessing about her son Ain, who is now the newly appointed crown prince. Curiosity fills the air. Everyone eagerly awaits the meeting with the young Ain, who suddenly became the topic of all conversations in the kingdom. During the sparring, Ain faced the mighty Grand Marshal Lloyd Galatia and impressed him with his swordsmanship skills. Lloyd sees the prince's dedication and growth, senses the incredible effort Ain put into training, and Ain himself, though proud of his progress, is tormented by doubt. He understands that even his older brother, who only recently began training, might already be better than him. Ain recalls his past. Once he tried to gain the approval of his father and others, but in the end, his mother took him to Ishtalaka. Now, having become the crown prince, he is tormented by doubt. Will people truly accept him while holding an egg in his hand? He quietly dreams of a talent or skill that would prove his worth, and Lloyd silently watches, sensing the boy's insecurity. When Ain stands before Lloyd, the chief marshal notices a hole in the boy's clothing and without hesitation takes out a sewing kit and begins to mend it himself, which surprises Ain. The mighty warrior, carefully sewing the fabric, looks completely out of place, and she is simultaneously puzzled and smiles at that unexpected tenderness beneath his formidable exterior. Suddenly, Lloyd was filled with incredible energy. His movements exploded with power. Dozens of spectral hands appeared around him, and each acted lightning fast. In a matter of moments, the hole in Ain's clothing disappears, sewn flawlessly, as if it was never there. Ain looks down and cannot believe his eyes. When everyone realized that the formidable Grand Marshal had just fixed his clothes with surgical precision and superhuman speed, Lloyd proudly revealed that his innate gift was sewing, which stunned Ain. He explained how he had honed this simple craft to incredible mastery over the years, and although it was not a usual combat skill, it was through persistence and discipline that Lloyd rose to the rank of Grand Marshal, and his words left Ain stunned and inspired, realizing that strength could hide in the most unexpected talents. Lloyd firmly places his hand on Ain's shoulder. His face is serious but warm. He tells the boy that effort is a true treasure that leads a person through anything and pushes them to keep going. Lloyd assures Ain that anxieties will disappear over time if he continues to work diligently, and Ain listens quietly. These words settle deeply within him, and he begins to understand the weight and value of persistence. Suddenly, Kadima, the energetic cat princess, pounced on Ain out of excitement. Her unexpected appearance completely stunned him, and she drags him away at full speed. Lloyd watches the chaos unfold with a calm expression and simply nods to her as she disappears down the corridor with Ain. Ain suddenly found himself in the middle of a huge library. I am sitting opposite Kadima. She looks truly pleased with herself. He is still confused from being pulled away and listens as she explains that Olivia asked her to check something related to him. Although her explanation was vague, Anna quickly understood that there was no escaping her curious and mischievous nature. When she spent time with Kadima and Christina in the library, the atmosphere became light and friendly. Kadima impatiently examined Anna's status card, interested in her abilities. To everyone's surprise, his stats suddenly jumped and a mysterious new skill appeared in the list of abilities: Absorption, and this discovery intrigued both girls. They realized that the target before them was much bigger than they thought. Kadima reveals that Ain inherited the racial traits of a dryad from Olivia's mother, and shocked Ain cannot comprehend what it means to be half-dryad, one of the spirits of nature. Kadima, amused by his reaction, laughs jokingly and says that maybe he could even grow roots right from his body like Olivia, and this completely confuses Ain. Kadima says that in the Ishtalik clan and in the royal family there is mixed blood from humans, Katsits, and dryads, so descendants may unexpectedly inherit strange traits of ancient ancestors. While Ain listens, she suddenly notices something strange. His indicators are growing too fast, and stunned, she finds out why. He was unconsciously absorbing magical energy from magical stones, a rare and powerful ability. Kadima says that monsters become stronger by devouring magical stones, but humans cannot. These stones are poisonous to them. However, thanks to Ain's unique skill talks and decomposition X, he manages to safely absorb their power. Recalling an ancient incident, Ain admits that once out of curiosity, because the stone smelled sweet, he accidentally licked it. Awakening this rare ability, Chris reports that every half-human, even elves like her, has a magical stone inside, and she believes that Ain inadvertently absorbed the one inside her, which caused his power to suddenly increase. Shocked, Ain tries to deny it, but realization settles. His absorption ability may affect not only free magical stones but also living beings. Chris understands that her sudden weakness began during the carriage trip to the capital. Ain accidentally sucked magical power from her. Kadima explains that Chris will not be harmed as long as Ain does not fully absorb her magical stone, so Ain calms down with relief, and Kadima is already preparing an experiment to test his absorption ability theory. Kadima starts the experiment and orders Ain to suck magical stones from 2 chests. One is packed full of cheap stones, and the other shining, high-quality stones worth tens of thousands of gold. Ain starts with the cheapest, carefully absorbing its power. To everyone's surprise, he handles it easily and finishes the whole box without problems, and Kadima, smiling, asks if it was tasty. While Ain breathes a sigh of relief after the test, Ain curiously tries the high-grade magic stone, wondering what it tastes like. While he absorbs it, the color of the stone fades, proof that energy is flowing out of it, but very soon he feels dizzy and nauseous. He complains that the taste is like a walnut and that he does not like it, so the worried Kadima and Chris hurriedly run over to check, and Kadima smiles and jokes that it's funny that dryad like On would not like something that grows on a tree. Kadima begins to explain to me that I cannot just endlessly absorb magical power without limits. Each type of magic stone has its own limit that determines how much it can increase someone's stats, and the higher the quality of the stone, the greater the increase. She adds that the high-grade stone that Ain absorbed probably comes from a powerful monster named Black Fallen, hence the explanation for that strange reaction. Despite everything, Kadima just laughs and says that Ain's abilities are definitely not ordinary. Ain himself admits he feels like he has gained another ability. Ain recalls how he first used his X to break down toxins back then. He had a terrible headache, but now he feels completely fine. Kadima explains that it's all thanks to his gift of training the body. He boosts immunity and makes pain less noticeable, so his body perfectly suits his abilities. While they talk, the door opens and Olivia, Ain's mother, enters gracefully, and the stunned and touched Ain exclaims, "Mom." Olivia rushed into Ain's arms and hugged him so tightly out of joy because she finally saw him again. Ain blushed and was shy under everyone's gaze, and Kadima happily said that the tests showed everything is fine with his condition. Smiling with relief, Olivia immediately takes his hand and says they need to go somewhere. They walk through the palace corridors and find themselves before the king, where Olivia respectfully bows and apologizes for the delay, addressing him as father. Ain, Olivia, and the king stood before huge, luxuriously decorated doors glowing with intricate patterns. Interested, Ain looks up and asks his grandfather what this place is. The king, calm and at the same time solemn, explains that this is the castle treasury, the sacred repository of the most valuable artifacts of Ishtalak. When the heavy mechanism unlocks, giant doors slowly open before them. With a dull rumble they open, revealing shelves of treasures, gold, jewels, and ancient artifacts, and they stand in awe, bewildered as to why they have found themselves in such a sacred place. The king says that Olivia asked for both forgiveness and a reward for all she had to endure, then turned to Aeneas and added that she wanted him personally to give something to her son, and Aeneas, stunned and confused, wonders what kind of gift could await him in such a place. King presented Ain with the national treasure of Ishtalaka, the magical stone Dullahan, a huge gem radiating incredible power. He explained that over 5 centuries ago a demon lord appeared on the continent of Ishtar, and among his terrible followers was Dullahan, a warrior of such might that with one strike he could tear apart the sky and sea, and now that very power is sealed in the stone standing before them. Ain froze in disbelief, unable to believe that such a legendary item was meant for him. As the king tells of the ancestor who defeated the demon lord and united the kingdom, Ain listens with reverence, realizing that everyone acknowledges the greatness of that hero. A strange warmth spreads in his chest, his heart pounds wildly, he tightly grips his uniform and does not understand why. Olivia smiles gently and signals that they can proceed. The king reminds that although the stone is called a national treasure, it is only one of many kept in the royal family. Ain, still stunned, nods. The burden of his heritage begins to weigh on him. Ain steps forward toward the glowing relic, and his heartbeat echoes in the vast hall. The king sternly warns Olivia not to approach even near the stone. Its boundless magic could affect her. She agrees and begs her father to step back as well. Standing opposite the artifact, Ain feels the overwhelming energy pulsing in the air, and each step becomes harder than the last. Ni approaches the glowing relic, its light reflecting in his eyes. The king and Olivia hold their breath and watch as he reaches out. The poisonous aura of the magical stone around him simply vanishes. When Ain's hand touches the stone, a wild, uncontrollable force surges through him, so immense that it almost consumes him. He feels the energy resonate deep within him. And then a barely audible voice echoes in his mind, ancient, distant. When Ain grips the magical stone, dark energy explodes outward, swirling turbulently around him like a storm, and his eyes open wide in shock as this overwhelming power engulfs him. Olivia exclaimed in horror, and the king instantly rushed to cover her, shouting for her to step back. The treasury trembled. The released power swirls around the iron, pulling everything to the center. It struggles as waves of energy burst from the magic stone, enveloping it in dazzling light and crackling might, and it realizes. Energy is not absorbed, it bursts into it. The ground shakes under incredible pressure, and the king shouts for it to stop. If anything goes wrong, his voice barely reaches through the rumble. Olivia covers her face from the fierce wave of energy, frightened, while Ain's body glows brighter, caught between resistance and submission. A dazzling flash bursts from the magic stone. Ain's body burns with raw, unstable power. His hair rises from the uncontrollable force surrounding him. Lightning cuts through the air. The king covers his eyes. Olivia clings to him. Both fight to withstand the fierce storm of magic. The whole room shudders. The light intensifies and engulfs everything with its brilliance. Ain clutches the stone as waves of energy explode outward and wrap his body in light. The power surged into him uncontrollably, tearing and ripping the air around. The king and Olivia pressed close, shielding their faces from the dazzling flash, and the room is engulfed by swirling magic and roaring wind as the energy storm subsides. Sparks of magic hovered around Einstein, and his body trembled from the newly acquired power. He looks at his hands with disbelief. Incredible power flows through him. His status has sharply risen. Endurance, magic, and protection have reached beyond human limits, and dark energy pulses around, signaling the birth of a new power in the heir to the Ishtalaka throne. Under the moonlit sky, the girl stands on the balcony of Archduke August's residence and looks at the stars, gently clutching her chest and whispering the name Ains, as if reaching out to him across the distance. The wind plays with her hair. She vows to meet him again someday, and her heart carries this promise into the night like a quiet message drifting through the starry sky. Alone in her room, the girl sits under the quiet glow of the moon, holding a small souvenir from AINN in her hands. She looks at it tenderly. His smile lingers in her mind for a long time. A sigh escapes as she lays her head on the table and feels the weight of his absence so unfair. She thinks, clutching the gift, his warmth is the only thing left of him this night. As her father asked, the maid entered Klon's room to check how her homework was progressing. Kamlai, Klon replies that she has already finished everything, and the stunned maid notes that it should have taken a whole week, but Klon just smiles and says she did it all in a few days because she was completely focused, then asks to tell her father to prepare something more difficult next time. Her face quietly radiates confidence. Klon reflects on her progress and is determined to become stronger, to proudly stand next to Ain next time, and the maid, impressed by how much work she managed to do in just 2 days, promises to pass on her message. Then she adds that the Grandmaster also sent a message saying he wants her to write a letter to AINN. Klon freezes for a moment, her face lights up with surprise, but she quickly composes herself, pretends to sigh and be annoyed, and tells the maid to just add any new lessons he desires to her schedule, for example, riding on horseback or dancing. Confused, Klon rushes around the room, panicking over her first letter to Ein, stubbornly searching for the most beautiful paper and pen, declaring that this is much more important than homework. Holding a blank sheet, she blushes deeply and doesn't know what to write since she has never written to a boy before. Her maid watches and quietly giggles at the lady's rare nervousness, while Klon protests, insisting that she is completely serious. Klon, clutching the letter in her hand, suddenly dashes down the corridor, thanking the maid on the go and rushing to find the Grandmaster, while the maid shouts after her that there is no need to hurry, he won't go anywhere. But Klon does not stop, her thoughts are ironclad. Moving, she thinks about everything she wants to say to him, her face is soft and full of longing. The scene ends with her gazing at the sky under the moonlight, wondering what Anne is doing right now. Having absorbed the national treasure, Ein stands before his kin, and a new, powerful force emanates from him. Olivia proudly embraces him, shining with joy at how much he has grown, while the grandfather carefully examines the results and says with admiration that his strength is wonderful and worthy of one who has absorbed such a relic. Despite the praise, the old man reminds Ein to remain humble. Power itself gives nothing if he does not become a vessel strong enough to withstand it. Ein listens seriously, nods, and feels the full weight of his words. King says that it seems everything happened as Olivia planned. She hinted that since the time of the divorce she had a premonition of how everything would end today, but he does not understand why she hid Ein's ability to absorb magical stones, even though he knows how much she loves him. Olivia lowers her eyes and confesses. At first she only thought about fulfilling her royal duty, but after marrying into the Round Heart family, her trust in them shook her confidence in the future. She tightly clutches her dress as if feeling the full weight of her decisions, and Ein silently watches, sensing the emotions behind her words. Finally, Olivia admits she never dared to put down roots with Logos, her husband. Shock spread through the room when she confessed that Ein was born Dryad, not entirely human, and her father's eyes widened with understanding. He realized how deep her decision was. Ein is silent, confused, but feels the full weight of her words. Olivia lowers her head, apologizes to her father, and admits, as soon as she decided to divorce, everything that happened today was already part of her plan. After Olivia's confession, the king calmly told Anna that he needed to speak with her alone, and Anna hesitated for a moment but nodded in understanding and quietly left the hall. He leaves and they remain sitting together on the balcony overlooking the city. A heavy but calm mood sets in, and finally a long overdue conversation between father and daughter is about to begin. The king and Kedummer drink tea and talk about Olivia's fate, and the king sadly admits he probably made a mistake marrying her into the Round Heart family, especially because of the Dryad blood. Aim, confused by this complicated conversation, simply asks what does root even mean. Kedummer laughed and directly answered that it means conceiving a child, which made the king choke on his drink and scold her for being too frank. Ketamar explains that for Dryads, forming a relationship is a lifelong bond with only one person, so for them it is a much more serious matter than for other races. Ain froze in shock and the king confirmed that it was true. Mark's interlocutor continues. Dryads can give birth without a partner. That's how Olivia could have given birth to Ain alone, and Ain is still puzzled and aloud asks what this means for him and his origin. Katimer explains that Ain was born exclusively from Olivia, more precisely, from a part of her own body, from her stump. The king adds that Olivia, although as a queen she had to bear offspring, could not treat relationships lightly because she was Dryad. Katimer says that Dryads have a hypnotic charm and probably that helped Olivia cope with marriage. The king reflects on how hard it was for her to decide to act independently, and Ain quietly accepts the truth about his special birth. Ain Kumlai says that he does not care what others think about his mother. He is convinced that she went through a lot to give birth to him. The king adds, Olivia's actions were harsh and difficult, but justified. The Round Heart family broke the agreement that was supposed to make her child the next heir. Feeling relieved, Ain's stomach growled and Ketimer laughed, impressed by how calmly he holds himself despite everything. The king warns Ian about a dangerous relic in the audience hall, the magical stone of the Demon King, kept as a national treasure. Ketimer strictly orders him never, even accidentally, to enter there. Stunned, Ain suddenly realizes it is from the very same Demon King whom his ancestor once defeated. Ketimer says that when he is hungry, he unconsciously absorbs magical stones, so he might accidentally swallow one and that would be a real disaster. Ain quietly said that his mother told him the first king was a hero recognized by all, and Ketimer nodded and confirmed the king was respected both for strength and kindness. True champion is full of curiosity. Ine asks if such a person would be known even to other peoples, and Kidamar replies that every country in the world knows about the glory of the first king. Ein remembers everything his mother did for him, and his conscience hurts. He feels guilty for not having repaid her. He is not sure whether his true self is defined by strength or the title of heir to the throne, and because of this he struggles with a sense of self-worth. Then, filled with determination, he declares that he will prove to himself and everyone, especially the Round Heart family, who mocked his mother, how truly valuable he is. With a flame of determination in his eyes, An stands up and loudly proclaims his goal to become a great king, equal to the legendary first king, and his voice echoes with resolve, marking the beginning of his true ambition. Ain hesitates, wondering if his dream to equal the first king sounds arrogant, but the elder reassures him there is no disrespect in that at all. With a quiet, calm smile, he offered to personally mentor Ain, leaving fencing to others, and she, grateful and determined, readily agreed, and was ready to begin training that very night. An energetic woman with cat ears suddenly grabs An, excited to explore his new power, and pulls him away before he can object. Amid the chaos, the elder looks on with a gentle smile and says that Ain reminds him of someone very dear from the past, and his face softens with quiet nostalgia. Months pass in peace, and summer comes to Ishtalak. An is now confident and composed, recalling 8 months filled with growth and training. Standing under the sun, he barely smiles, and is ready for what lies ahead when someone calls him. Ain's training intensifies. He is led into a dark forest where real monsters roam, and the mentors strictly warn these are not training fights, these creatures truly seek to kill. In a moment, the bushes rustled and a huge beast burst out of them. Claws dug into the ground, and Anton said his nerves tightened. Ain stands before his first real battle, a huge roaring destruction in the forest. Mentors watch closely as he insists on doing it himself, eager to prove what he is capable of. Looking at the sharp claws and teeth of the creature, he checks his stance, knowing that the slightest mistake could cost him dearly. Ain swiftly knocks down the first monster, standing firm and unshaken, and confidence flashes in his eyes as he takes his stance again. More creatures emerge from the shadows, but instead of retreating, he only smiles, ready to fight on and determined to surpass himself. Having defeated several monsters, Ain stands proudly among their fallen bodies, confidence burning on his face, and the mentors praise his successes. But just as the laughter dies down, his eye catches a barely noticeable twitch of one of the corpses, a quiet warning that the fight is not over, and the seemingly defeated monster lunges at Ain with terrible speed. But he reacts instantly. With one clean move, he slices it. The creature flies apart, and everyone freezes in amazement at his speed and precision, while Ain stands unshaken, the calm on his face showing how much he has already grown. Ain demonstrates a new ability, Phantom Hand, a power he inherited from Dullahan. A dark ethereal limb grows from his hand, pulsing with magical energy. He says that through his mana he can control its shape and strength, and with a special nail from Cadimia its potential grows even stronger. This is so far the only skill of the Black Knight that he has mastered, but it clearly shows his rapid progress. Ain tries the new technique with the Phantom Hand. He thrusts it into a monster and sucks out its magic stone, even while it is still alive. He summoned the ability a pitch-black straw, captivated by its power and the special taste of magical essence. His mentors watched in disbelief, amazed and anxious, realizing that what Ain possesses is both incredible and terrifying. Riding through the city with Chris and Lloyd, Ain suddenly notices a familiar shop and points at it. Chris explains that this is Majley's, a famous magical stones shop that even supplies the castle. Interested and excited, he gladly accepts Lloyd's offer to go inside and take a look. Lloyd stays behind to avoid attracting attention and asks Chris to quietly escort Ain into the shop because his identity has not yet been officially announced. Wrapped in a cloak to hide his royal status, Ini follows Chris into the magical stones shop, completely unaware of the quiet observer watching them from inside. Inside the shop, Ainn and Chris are greeted by the impressive, confident shop owner. He warmly welcomes them in a dramatic pose. Heavy makeup and a pompous manner immediately catch Ain's attention and slightly stun the boy with this unexpected presentation. Chris led the boy to the famous magical stones shop, hesitating a little but reassuring him. The owner, though eccentric, is reliable and kind. Inside, the woman recognized Chris and, smiling, addressed her. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. She joked that Chris was acting as the boy's guardian, and Chris tried to hold back her emotions. The shopkeeper warmly welcomed them, amused by the unexpected visit, while the boy, feeling a bit out of place, quietly apologized and followed Chris deeper into the shop. The boy explained that he wanted to see the magical stones, which immediately caught the shopkeeper's attention. She looked at him with interest and praised his curiosity, noting how rare it is at such a young age. Her voice softened, and she said she would like to be friends, but the boy still remained shy. She let them freely explore the shop but strictly warned, "Do not touch the stones and crystals, some of them can be dangerous." Chris quietly assured her that he understood, and they began to look around. The boy gazed at the shining stones on display, their energy barely crackled in the air. Thanks to training in suppressing absorption, he now felt only faint traces of magic around, and he recalled how, before training, even the smell of a simple stone was so strong it overwhelmed him. Flipping through further, he noticed one item, a strange piece with the inscription, "His stake." Kramer explained that the stone comes from the white wyvern, a creature valued for its meat. Intrigued, the boy immediately decided to buy it. Risa was stunned by this. The seller, out of respect for her, gave her a discount. Chris reminded the boy to keep his identity and abilities secret. He recalled that he would spend the recent pocket money from his grandfather, and she agreed that it was fine if it made him happy. With a slight smile, he prepared to make the purchase. The boy eagerly chose magical stones one after another, and with each choice his excitement only grew, and the total quickly reached a large sum, and Krisa was clearly shocked at how much he was spending. The seller smiled and began carefully wrapping the purchases as they prepared to leave. The boy could barely contain his impatience, already imagining how he would test and absorb the stones as soon as he returned to the castle. The boy wandered the shop when his eyes fell on a strange glow on a pedestal. As if enchanted, he approached closer. And he saw under the glass a dark, sinister crystal. The air around it seemed oppressively heavy, and its presence was nothing like any stone he had seen. Chill ran down his spine as he realized that this was a magical stone known as the accursed jewel. The seller told a creepy legend about the cursed gem that whispers to its owner and invades their dreams. Reese said that the case in which it lay was specially made to mute its power. The boy listened with interest. But he still was not sure. Although he felt something from the stone, it did not seem evil to him. The boy, intrigued by the dark crystal, calmly asked if he could buy it along with the sealed case. His question stunned everyone in the room. The seller froze, not knowing what to answer, and Chris panicked and rushed to him, begging him to stop before something terrible happened. The tension thickened, and silence completely filled the shop. The shop owner agreed to sell the sealed stone, charging only for the case, and the boy calmly confirmed his decision, assuring everyone that he was doing it of his own free will. Chris hesitated, torn by anxiety and duty, but finally gave in, realizing she could not stop him. The boy handed over the money, determined, yet still uneasy, and Chris quietly sighed beside him in silent resignation. While the shopkeeper packed the boy's purchase, he went to look at other stones, and his cheerful tone sharply contrasted with how increasingly worried Chris became. The shopkeeper teased her, saying how brave this young prince was, and Chris froze in place, realizing that her previous words had revealed him. Trying to hide her panic, she muttered confused excuses, but the damage was already done. The air tensed. As they were preparing to leave, Chris nervously begged the shop owner to keep secret who the prince really was. The owner smiled and promised not to tell, teasing her, saying she was really bad at hiding anything. Outside, the boy cheerfully remarked how much he enjoyed the visit. Chris tried to hide her embarrassment, saying she just had dust in her eyes, but her flushed face said otherwise. Returning to the castle, the boy finally relaxed, giving himself up to rest with relief after a long day. The night quietly spread over the city, and there was a quiet knock at his door. A young maid entered with a gentle smile, recognized him, and offered to help him change. The boy warmly greeted her. It was Marcel, the one he clearly trusted. He hesitated a little, insisting that he could manage changing clothes himself, but Marcel gently reminded him that as his mother's personal maid, she had to take care of him too. Her calm smile carried such power that he was simply confused. Before leaving, she handed him a sealed letter and said it was addressed to him. Interested, he opened it and noticed there were no traces of who sent it. Marsh said the letter came from a noble family from the kingdom of Heim, but it was routed through the kingdom of Euro before it reached them. She sharply reminded him that Ishtalaka had severed all ties with Heim because of old quarrels involving him and Olivia. The boy tensed, not understanding why such a letter was sent to him. Suspecting a trick, he wanted to destroy it, being sure nothing good could come from it. The letter was written from deep feelings. It revived a priceless night and a precious gift, a flower once given by the boy, and the author confessed that this memory was cherished above all, calling it brighter than any jewel. As he read, it suddenly became clear he had given the flower to only one person. Stunned, he recognized the handwriting. There was no doubt the letter was from her. He continued reading, and the tone of the letter played with hope. The author regretted hiding her name but promised to reveal it if Ishtalaka ever accepted her. Suddenly the boy understood everything. Her words hinted at something more, and his heart raced as the truth dawned on him. Klon, the girl from his past, was going to come to Ishtalaka. The last words of the letter made it clear. She wanted to come but would only name herself when accepted there. The boy's heart pounded in his chest as the truth struck him. It was no mistake. Klon, the girl who once held his flower, really planned to come to Ishtalaka. Still holding the letter, the boy decided to respond to write that Klon had always been kind to him and his mother, and Marsh gloomily said he was worried about how hard it would be for someone from Heim to get into his talk. He still remained an optimist and believed that if the guest maintained good relations with Olivia, it could be arranged, and Marcia, smiling with relief, agreed this was truly good news. Standing by the window under the moonlight, the boy quietly repeated her name, Claude. Memories of their shared past flooded in, of the moment when they exchanged gifts and smiles, and looking into the night, he felt a quiet hope in his heart. Time passed and autumn came. The air became cool and invigorating. The boy did not stop training and boldly entered a sparring match against the knight. Friends from the sidelines loudly cheered him on, shouting words of support. With determination in his eyes, he moved forward, ready to prove how much stronger he had become. During the duel, the knight lunged forward, shouting that he was going to win. He raised his blade high, aiming for a decisive strike, but the boy remained calm and perfectly read his move. At the last moment, the boys slipped aside and dodged the attack, but realized too late that their move had been anticipated. The expression of the knight changed from confident to surprised, and the duel turned in the boy's favor. With a lightning-fast move, the boy disarmed his opponent, ending the duel with a victory. The knight admitted defeat and the crowd erupted in applause. Breathing heavily but smiling, the boy ran to his mother and proudly exclaimed that he had won. She warmly praised him. He fought bravely, though he was wounded. The knight enthusiastically praised the boy for how he had grown and said that his unique ability, the gift of training, allows him to become stronger only through his own effort, and the recent victory was proof of his persistence and determination. Seeing his progress, the knight presented a new challenge for him to become even better. The boy hesitated for a moment, not knowing what awaited ahead, and the knight smiled confidently, ready for their next training. A sudden jolt shook the ground, and in the distance above the castle, a column of smoke rose. The people on the training field turned around confused, not knowing whether it was an earthquake or an explosion. After the powerful strike, the place turned into ruins. The boy, exhausted from the battle, sat down trembling while his comrades rushed to check him. The knight laughed proudly, impressed by how the boy had grown, comparing his strength to that of the first king. Chris handed him water. He warned her to stay away. He was afraid of accidentally absorbing her magic again, and she, embarrassed, instantly retreated, flustered by the very thought. Training for today was over, and the group was lively discussing the boy's future. Olivia said it was time to prepare for the academy, as he would go there this winter. At first surprised, the boy realized this was an important next step, and Olivia smiled, encouraging him to prepare for this new chapter. The boy pondered the future at the academy and was a little worried about going there as the heir to the throne. Olivia reassured him, reminding him that her father was on the academy council and the journey would be safe. Chris interrupted and suggested taking a walk to calm the nerves a bit. The one she addressed paused for a moment, considering her offer, and felt grateful for the support before the new changes. Chris led the boy to a quiet beach hidden behind the castle, and he held his breath at its beauty. She explained that almost no one came here. This beach was kept for emergencies. While they admired the view, Chris asked what his plans were for the academy entrance exam. He said he would focus on fencing after the victory over the knights. He felt confident. Chris encouraged him, sure that he would succeed. Walking along the beach, the boy asked Chris if she and Lloyd could defeat her father, Logus. Chris froze for a moment, then decided instead to show something. She prepared to drop her sword to the ground and told him to watch carefully, not looking away, so as not to miss where it would fall. The boy nodded and focused on her next move. Chris casually dropped the sword and told the boy to be careful. While he was watching where the sword fell, she quietly sneaked up behind him. She suddenly appeared beside him, and he froze in surprise. She moved so quickly and silently that he was struck. Her skill far exceeded his expectations. Chris explained that she moved the very moment the sword struck the ground. That's how insanely fast she was, and added that even Logus wouldn't keep up with her movements, and Lloyd would defeat him in open combat. The boy realized how hard it would be to reach their level, but felt inspired and grateful for the support and the short break before the exam, and thanked Chris, who smiled. The world was glad that it helped him relax. When the wind picked up, the ribbon in Chris's hair came undone. The boy silently watched, slightly embarrassed by this moment. Chris noticed and quickly apologized. "I'll stop right now," and he waved off his reaction and smiled inwardly how clever Chris can be sometimes. The boy arrived by train in the Academia district and froze with admiration a huge crowd. The district was bustling. Everywhere were students, supervisors, and researchers. His companion explained that the district was always noisy, so many different people were drawn here. The boy looked around and realized that he had finally arrived at the academy. The boy finally stood before the impressive Kingsland Royal Academy, ready to take the entrance exam. Chris wished him luck as he headed to the examination hall, determined to do his best. The boy entered the academy and, suddenly, someone fell right in front of him. He quickly asked if everything was all right, but that person seemed upset and irritated. Nearby, another student scolded them for lack of motivation, and the boy wondered if this person was someone important or an acquaintance. The boy suddenly realized that stern man at the front of the group was actually the examiner. The examiner spoke sharply and harshly, as if testing not only the students' skills but also their determination. Before the test, the rules were briefly explained. No one was allowed to say their name to keep everything fair for everyone. The boy prepared, knowing that this exam would test both body and mind. The exam tested swordsmanship, martial arts techniques, and even allowed some special abilities as long as they were not ranged attacks. The examiner mercilessly tore apart every student's move, calling them failures. When the line thinned, the boy stepped forward, determined to prove what he was capable of with only a sword. The boy looks at the examiner and the arena, both already ready with their swords. The examiner taunts him and throws down a challenge: "Try to earn my permission to enter." The boy lunged at the examiner with furious speed and iron determination. He dodges the strike and tries to hit back, striking the examiner, who admits that the boy is better than he expected. The fight is fierce and lightning fast. The boy dodges a powerful attack and instantly spins around. He tries to use his smaller stature to confuse the examiner. He thinks about how to keep him guessing and makes another move. He waits for the right moment to strike. The boy rushes into the attack, but is pushed back. The examiner, not impressed at all, sharply notes that the boy relies too much on his status and lacks proper technique. The boy understands. The examiner turns out to be even stronger than the knights. The examiner mocks his skills, says that tricks don't work on him, and insults the boy's teacher. The boy restrains himself tensely because he knows his goal is only to pass the exam, not to win the fight. The examiner sternly tells the boy that there will be no leniency and throws him a challenge: "Will you give up?" The boy refuses and wants to continue. The examiner mockingly humiliates the boy, says that he was probably raised by foolish parents, and adds that he will teach him. The boy is vigilant and focused, ready for what will happen next. The boy chewed over the examiner's words in his mind and realized insults directed at him can simply be ignored. But when his mother and teachers were insulted, he becomes unshakable, ready to show his true dedication in battle. Heir becomes serious and releases his powerful skill, the Phantom Hand of the Black Knight. Behind him materialize dark, ghostly hands sparkling with energy. Catching everyone by surprise, even the examiner, who is stunned by the sudden display of power. The examiner demands explanations about the Phantom Hands, shocked by their appearance. Heir stands unshakably, without hesitation, does not retreat, and makes it clear that he has never heard of any rule against his skill. Fully focused, he is ready for the next move. In the arena, two fighters stand face to face. One has two snake-like hands and looks calm, and the other. Ignited, he rushed forward with a sword. The combo fighter thinks that simply having more hands does not make a person stronger. The clash is about to begin. The fighter with hands like snakes launched a swift attack, swinging both hands at the opponent. The other instantly dodges, circling around, avoiding every strike, though the strikes increased. He who dodges keeps up with the opponent, swiftly slipping past every strike. The exchange is rapid, and both show their skill. The fighter with an eye patch strikes the ground with a run-up and restrains these snake-like hands. He looks confident, his attacks hardly bother him. Another fighter struggling to catch his breath. He begins to understand that even with additional arms, his techniques parry without any difficulty. Seeing that the attacks do not work, the smaller fighter saturates his serpentine arms with even more magic, making them bigger and more powerful. Sparks fly as he prepares for the next move. The fighter with the eye patch notices this change and looks both surprised and impressed. The opponent is raising the stakes. Super powerful hands dig into the ground, tearing the arena to pieces. Stones fly everywhere, and the fighter with the sword barely keeps up with them. Realizing that the attacks have become much faster and can even destroy the field itself, he tries with all his might to block and dodge, barely managing to react. The battle intensifies. The smaller fighter jumps high and, shouting, falls down to deliver a direct strike. The swordsman manages to react, but noticing the strengthened arm, his movements seem to slow down. The clash ends with the smaller fighter delivering a powerful blow right on target. Suddenly, the smaller fighter jumps up and grabs his opponent's sword. Pinned down on the spot with both hands, the swordsman struggles to break Freethi's move caught him by surprise. The atmosphere changes as the table's turn comes and the smaller fighter prepares for the next attack. The swordsman strikes the ground with all his might, trying to knock down his opponent, but the smaller fighter clings on and does not let go. With a roar, the smaller one rises, not retreating, and both push each other with all their might, unwilling to give in. The smaller fighter unleashed a powerful strike with his magical hand, but the swordsman met it head-on. The ground cracked and both froze in shock, stunned that the attack was even repelled. The other, gritting his teeth and pushing through the pain, the fight exhausts them both, but no one intends to give up. The smaller fighter releases another powerful strike with both magical hands, shattering the ground and raising a huge cloud of dust and debris. When the dust settled, he was panting, exhausted but still standing, his magical hands at the ready. The swordsman rises from the rubble, stunned by the strength and endurance of this boy. He had never met anyone like him before. The smaller fighter, also surprised, realizes that the opponent is still standing, and thinks about how strong he really is. The entire testing ground has turned to ruins. Nothing like this had ever happened before, and the fight is so fierce that they cannot continue the test. After the fight, the smaller fighter quickly apologizes, ashamed that he lost control and caused so much damage. He bows and thinks that he probably failed the test, having overdone it. The swordsman silently looks at him for a moment. While the smaller fighter worries, not knowing what will happen next, instead of anger, the fencer hands him a certificate saying, "You passed the test." He says he understands. The anger had its reason, and in the fight, everyone had their moments. The boy, stunned but relieved, tightly grasps the paper, and after the harsh duel between them, a brief, quiet exchange of respect passes. The boy froze in shock for a moment, but then sighed and smiled with relief. Bowing one last time, he watched the swordsman walk away, then, filled with joy, ran outside with the certificate in his hands, ready to tell everyone that he passed the exam. After the boy successfully passed the test, the group met him and greeted him joyfully. One of them, clearly irritated, throws out, "Are you out of your mind?" Someone lashes out at him with reproaches, saying that he used a special skill he promised not to show anyone. The boy, who looked frightened, he apologizes and tries to explain that she felt his power even from afar. The girl blushes and becomes shy while talking to the boy, confessing that she could not ignore the fact that he used his special skill even if only for the test, warns that such a skill should not be used so casually, and embarrassed scolds him, while the boy quietly listens and thinks about how to get out of this situation. The boy worries that during the exam he might accidentally hurt the examiner, but the girl gently reassures him, there is a healer at the academy, and the examiners are strong people who are not so easy to injure. They are actually former adventurers, hardened by battles, and she even jokes that injuring such a strong examiner should give extra points, but warns that this will reach the king. So he must be ready for any consequences. The boy nods, realizing that now everything has become a bit more serious. A few days later, Einstein sits at the table while his father sternly lectures him about what happened during the exam, and his mother stands nearby watching. After the reprimand, Anna's grandfather intervenes. The tension melts in the air. Anna apologizes, and the grandfather decides to let the matter go. Anna's family never tires of repeating that it is time for him to behave like a true king, even though he is only 7 years old. His grandfather announced that Anne will participate in the public affairs of the port town Magna. For Anne, this will be the first official job as a member of the royal family, and his mother is simply delighted for him. Anne is surprised but listens to the news carefully and seriously, and quietly thinks about what public affairs might mean for him. Outside the window, a quiet harbor suddenly opens. A ship is moored by the water. Mom and Grandpa decide to go back inside, leaving Anne deeply immersed in thoughts about his new responsibilities. Anne is taken to the harbor along with his family. There, they are shown the country's giant warships, which the entire nation is proud of. He was told that these ships are needed to protect the borders, and Magna also has a large naval base. Ainn is fascinated by the grandeur and number of ships when he arrives at the port town of Magna, one of the largest cities of Ishtalaka. The district is bustling, fishing vessels sell their catch at the market, and nearby is the fleet base. Ainsmean usually inspects battleships, but he was also asked to check the first batch of sea crystals. They arrived under a contract related to his mother, and he also monitors the overall condition of the city. AINN showed several unprocessed sea crystals to Chris and another employee. Chris quickly cut open the box to show its contents. The movement was so fast that I cannot say whether it was magic or just skill. As always, he is impressed by how easily she handles everything. He examines the sea crystals, noting that they look like frozen salt. After finishing the work with the public, he sincerely thanks everyone for this experience. Later, Ain asks to look for a souvenir for his mother. She was sad that she couldn't go with him. Grandfather smiled and gladly agreed, and everyone finally relaxed together. Ain's mother was upset that she didn't go on the trip but was happy to read a letter from his grandfather. As the day quietly fades, Ain decided to take the opportunity to go to the pier and admire the sea. Meanwhile, grandfather wants to clarify the issue regarding the ships with Chris, so Ain agrees to wait a bit before heading to the city. Chris insists that Ain wear a special medallion, the Great Earth Ruby, a powerful magical artifact from the heart of a dragon that protects the life of the wearer. Although they are at the naval base, she cannot calm down about his safety. Ain agrees to wear it and promises not to go far while he waits. Ain stands on the pier and enjoys the clear sky and warm autumn weather. He looks at the fish swimming below and thinks to himself that this is the perfect day to take a little nap. He jokes that if he weren't the heir to the throne, he would just lie down and fall asleep right here. He looks around and he realizes that no one would even notice if he took a little nap now. He finds a pleasant shade near a crate, lies down, and gets comfortable. He hasn't been crowned prince yet, so he thinks this might be the last chance to relax like this. He enjoys the quiet moment and is glad about his choice. Ain leaned back and relaxed, listening to the sound of the waves that lull him to sleep. Silence and calm around kindle nostalgia in him and remind him of another port town Roundheart. Drifting into drowsiness, he listens to the waves like a lullaby and quietly falls asleep. Ain dreams as if he is rushing through a field of flowers together with his mother. He picks a flower and breathes in its scent with pleasure. He excitedly tells his mother what a wonderful smell it is here. When he brings it closer, suddenly he sneezed and they both laughed, sharing a happy moment for a while. Ain woke up confused. His hand touched someone's knees and he felt a familiar floral scent. For a moment he thought he was still dreaming of his mother, and everything around was blurred as he tried to understand what was real. The woman gently asks what he will say first that time has passed, or say thank you for allowing him to rest his head on her knees. Ain lifts his head and is still unsure whether he has woken up or if it is just a dream. Suddenly he realizes he is lying on Klon's knees. She gently asks if he wants water and her voice is full of care. They both sat on the pier and enjoyed a quiet moment, silently appreciating each other's company and looking at the water. Ain and Klon sit together by the water, talking and sharing how impressed they were to learn about each other, that Ain is from a royal family and Klon moved to another continent. They laugh and enjoy the conversation. Klon explains that she is not alone. She came with her grandfather, Archduke August, and several servants, showing them nearby. Klon explained that her grandfather is now a former archduke due to old age. He passed the title to her father. She talks about their journey. After her grandfather retired, he took her to the trading city Birdland. Something happened there and they disappeared for a while. Thanks to the help of Olivia Sama, they boarded a ship from Euro to Ishtulika. For political reasons, they remain silent about the details. A visit from an archduke from another country could cause problems. Ain apologizes, but Klon says not to worry. Chris finally finishes work and joins AINN and CLAWN at the pier. After the introduction, Chris cast a sharp look at the one who was dozing outside, and he instantly became embarrassed. Chris invites Klon to join them as they prepare to depart together for Magna City. Klon happily agrees, and the group gets ready to leave, with On promising not to doze off like that again. Claude respectfully asks Ain to accompany him, and she, surprised but happy, addresses him as Your Highness, Crown Prince, and agrees. They exchange a formal handshake, both smile and prepare to depart together. Late at night, Clue and the second princess drink tea together. The princess sincerely thanks Klon for the help and for arranging their stay. Klon says it's all right. It admits that she wants to be called by her name, as before. There is a sense of friendliness and relaxation in the air. They speak openly and strive to remain simple, despite their royal titles. While they drink tea, Olivia Sama gently asks Klon about her plans for the future. Klon falls silent in surprise but listens attentively, feeling that Olivia is truly interested in what she wants next. The conversation takes on a thoughtful tone. Claude begins to think about where to go next, and Olivia quietly says she has nothing to hide after all, it is just the two of them. Claude remembers how once Warren asked why they came to Ishtalak. This time Olivia's question sounds much more personal. Claude answered sincerely. She crossed the sea because she wanted to meet the heir to the throne, showing her true feelings and intentions. Olivia couldn't help but ask if Claude intends to stay in Ishtalak for life. Someone eagerly wanted to know what plans Claude has regarding Ain. Claude admits she is not sure if she is qualified enough to answer, but says she was ready for this choice the moment she left her homeland, and this shows that she is already fully devoted to this new life. Olivia enthusiastically says, "No problem." Then she invites Claude to visit the girls-only academy run by the queen herself, her mother. Olivia explains that this is not the same academy where Ain studied. It says that this is the best place for Claude to improve and urges her to shine so brightly that no one can deny her. Olivia reaches out her hand to Claude and hopefully asks her to help her shine. Claude, holding back tears, responds with a grateful yes. Ain sits in the library late, diligently studying a pile of books. Marsh worries about him, but Ain says he will do one more batch of work and thanks him, sir. He was focused on studying when someone sneaked up behind and whispered. He was so startled by this that he jumped. The lesson ends with Iron stretching and looking tired but determined after a long training session. Claude deliberately exaggerates the reaction by appearing behind him. Aim looks at her confused and asks why she is here. Claude says she just finished her classes and came to visit him. He was so immersed in work that he didn't even notice her arrival, so she laughs and asks for at least a normal hello next time. Ain asks Claude if she will go to bed soon, and she says she was just about to take a bath and adds that she is big, let him enjoy it too. Then quite suddenly Claude asks if he wants to go together, and this completely caught Ain off guard. He was quite confused. Claude appeared in a luxurious dress and, apologizing, explained that she was late because she had to help her grandfather greet people. Ain is a bit stunned and tells her that the dress suits her incredibly well. Claude thanks him and adds that he also looks very cool in formal attire. At the party, Claude was admiring everything in Ishtalak. The party seemed luxurious to her. The city's night lights shine brightly, and even ordinary people can ride the water train. She is amazed at how magical stones are used daily in this country, and she is especially impressed by how they are treated. Ain does not hide her surprise in Heim. Commoners are not allowed to work at such parties, and he says that this is his first party because nothing has been announced about him yet. Claude asks about the announcement date, and En smiles and says that it should happen sometime next spring before she enters the academy. They joke about preparing a speech. Ain thinks he should learn to speak more like an elder, maybe even like the first king, and Claude advises taking an example from someone he respects. Overall, the mood is light and relaxed. Some nobles at the ball whispered indignantly that inviting someone from Heim would disgrace the castle, and Ain and Claude overheard this, wondering what the premier really wants. Despite the gossip, Claven smiles and tells Ain that she is fine, suggesting just to enjoy the party, then takes his hand, trying to keep things light. Claude briefly steps away from Ain. Notice some tasty food, will bring some now. Ain's grandfather approaches her and asks where Clan is. Ain explains that she went to get something to eat, and the grandfather hints that the king prepared a special gift for Ain at the party and asks him to look forward to it. Ain's grandfather tells him that the king is truly sorry about what happened at the party in Heim. He says he thought it would be a good idea to announce Ain at this party, but suddenly something interrupts their conversation. Suddenly a plate fell and broke. Ain's attention is instantly caught. A nobleman, enraged, rushes at Claude right at the party. Call the police. They call her a country pumpkin from Heim and rudely demand an explanation of how she dares to appear. The room is tense. Ain's grandfather grumbles about the stubbornness of this noblewoman and decides to intervene to settle the situation, while Claude stands awkwardly and worriedly as all this happens. The nobleman tries to intimidate Claude, reaches out to her and says he will show her her place. Ain instantly rushed forward, grabbed the man by the wrist and stopped him. Ain calmly and firmly asked if he had any business with his guest, implying that he was protecting Claude. Ain decisively steps up to defend Claude, stating that she is a guest of the prime minister, and the nobleman mockingly reproaches her for interfering and says, "Hating people from Heim is perfectly normal if you care about Ishtalak." Ain warns him there is a line not to be crossed, but the nobleman simply turns a blind eye. And the conversation turns to grievances. Claude tries to stop Ain, while other guests whisper that they can never forgive what Heim did to Olivia Sama, although Heim is just a minor country. And he recalls how he and his mother were never accepted anywhere, and how she saved him by taking him away from Heim. He believes that it is not Klau's fault everything is just because he lacks the strength to be recognized and become decisive. He decides this time he will take matters into his own hands and change something by his own efforts. He squeezes Clan's hand, ready to act. Ain stands before Clan and says to everyone, if you harbor resentment against Heim, throw it at him. Claude looks surprised by his bold act, and the whole room reacts to Ain's words. The angry nobleman is stunned and nervously trembles. Meanwhile, Ain's grandfather smiles broadly, enjoying the situation. Ain remains calm and tells the nobleman that he understands his feelings because the heir to the throne's inheritance passed to Heim. And hearing that he is not blamed for such feelings, the nobleman panicked and quickly denied having any complaints against the heir to the throne. Ain begins to recall the past, blaming himself for weakness and for complicating his mother's life. He remembers how his relatives rejected him and how the condescending looks of others seemed to him an everyday thing, but after meeting her, everything changed, and finally he got a chance to prove what he is capable of. Ain steps forward, grabs the shining object and says that she wants to apologize to everyone for her weakness, but now everything is different. The nobleman is in panic, thinking that Ain is about to do something dangerous, but Ain remains calm and asks him not to worry. Ain calmly places his hand on the large blue magical stone. It suddenly begins to glow and emit energy. Everyone froze, watching as the blue stone right before their eyes began to become transparent. The guests whisper and chatter in disbelief, realizing that something extraordinary is happening. Ain now raises the transparent platinum stone to show everyone he will not yield to the power of monsters. He says that this platinum is proof and reminds that it is the same platinum loved by the first king. Standing in the center of the room, he radiates confidence and throws to the crowd, "Do you still think that the pride of his Talika is weak?" The elder man who was watching him froze in surprise. He thought about how much Ainn reminded him of someone else. The mood in the room suddenly changed. Ain proudly stands before the crowd, holding the platinum stone high. He loudly introduced himself. Ein von Ishtalaka told everyone that if anyone has claims against the clan, bring them to him, and at the end added that if anyone still has claims against him personally, they can come to the castle anytime. Everyone in the room silently looked at him, clearly impressed by his confidence. Ain raised the platinum high and, shouting to everyone in the room, promised that as the heir to the throne he would become a king worthy of ruling Ishtalaka, just like the first king. The whole crowd froze at his determination and confidence. Everyone shocked by Ain's proclamation. She named him the successor to the throne and highness. He is not nervous at all and asks everyone to accept Claude, who stands next to him. Claude is surprised and touched, and Ain thinks to herself that she has once again blurted out everything she had in mind. Everyone around Ain reacts emotionally to the announcement, some with relief, others with pride. King quietly acknowledges what has happened, and Ain understands that from now on, he has truly become the heir to the throne of Ishtalaka. A few days after Ainn declared himself heir to the throne at the party, a great public celebration was held for the residents of Ishtalaka. Fireworks thundered in the sky, and the castle shone with decorations. Ain greets the joyful crowd as the new heir to the throne. After the announcement, people talk about how brave and impressive he was, how he defended the clan and was not afraid of the power of the magic stone. The king sighed with relief. Everything went smoothly. Line thanks Ain and offers him a drink while everyone relaxes. The king talks about how usually he would have had to punish Ain, but after everything Ain had to go through, he lets it go. Warren notes that the nobles are impressed by Ain and that the story of what happened at the party will quickly spread. They also noticed Ain spoke almost exactly like the first kings, although no one ever told him about it. Warren suggests that Ain probably read about it somewhere after all. He is so fascinated by the first king, and then adds that he has a report on Lady Climb. Warren named 3 paths of education that open the way to the position of a civil servant. Be educated like a queen, or like a princess who influences many people. King asked which one she has chosen. Climb decided to embark on a path that will grant her higher education, make her a person who can influence many and protect the king. Anne fell silent, listening as she passionately spoke about her determination and plans for the future. The king realized that Climb had chosen all 3 paths offered to her. Both elders thoughtfully ponder how lucky the new generation is, watching with admiration as Ein and Clean grow and inspire hope. They quietly agree, and hope for the future blooms in their hearts. They arranged a lavish farewell ceremony. In the very center stood On, Clean, and Olivia, surrounded by guards. Sakura petals quietly fall, and Olivia checks if Einan Claim is ready to set off. Inn and Clean are ready and inspired for the new chapter. Each sets off to different academies. Olivia tries to join the farewell with hugs, but she is told she cannot go with them. They promise to try their best. Olivia worries about Ein, but Chris calmly reassures her she will be the one accompanying him. The others indicate that Olivia's presence at the academy would cause quite a commotion. Ein says goodbye to his mother and prepares to head to the academy together with Claim. Anne sets off to the academy, smiling again and ready for his new school life. Olivia watches with a gentle smile and sincerely wishes him success in this new chapter. The group arrives at the academy, surrounded by other students and staff. An approaches the entrance to crowded academy and feels literally overwhelmed by the crowd of people. Chris calms him down. Every day she will safely escort him to school, and even her words are already soothing. Ian finds it hard to relax and wonders if he will ever feel comfortable in such a prestigious school. At the threshold of the academy, Chris calls a student named Dill to him. Dill approaches Ein, greets respectfully, and Chris begins introducing them to each other. Chris proudly introduces Dill Galatia, son of Lloyd and Marcel. And the others look surprised, confusing their relationship and thinking that Lloyd and Marcel are a married couple because of the height difference. Lloyd and Marcel stand nearby. The boy cannot hide his surprise. The woman explains that Lloyd, although he is still just a night student, already possesses incredible skills and can protect others. She also says that both Lloyd and Marcel work in the castle, so they rarely show their private life, and the boy, stunned, realizes he didn't even know they were actually married. Dill Galatia introduced himself as the new guard and proudly said that it was an honor for him to serve the young prince. Just then a messenger brought a message from the king. It was explained that this was training for the prince so that he would learn to govern. He was ordered not to be too formal or too humble with Dill, but still to respect him by the king's command. The boy still greets warmly, extending his hand with a friendly smile. Dill, maintaining restrained politeness, stands up and in a sign of respect returns the gesture, thus their partnership begins. Dill bows deeply, sincerely expressing respect and readiness to serve the prince. Ein, to lighten the formality a bit, gently suggests calling him simply by his name. Dill politely refused, insisting that as a guard he must keep his distance. I cannot help but notice how stiff and serious Dill is. When the woman leaves, she reminds Anne not to return from school without Dill. Ein is troubled by the thought, do they consider him unreliable because he constantly needs supervision? Walking alongside, Dill confirms that there is no welcoming event at the academy and says that after classes he will escort the prince, and Ein agrees and adds that he will wait in the classroom until then. Ein and Dill arrive at the academy. Dill says that Ein will be in the first grade, and they are awestruck before the massive, ornate doors. I could not help but notice how majestic it looks against the others. Dill explains that only the best are selected for the first grade, and the design of DORS clearly emphasizes this. Dill says that at the Royal Academy of Kingsland, skills are valued above all. It accepts both nobles and commoners who strive to help their country. When he leaves, Ein gathers his spirit and prepares himself for the trial. Do you want to learn about those magnificent doors without a handle? He examines the doors until they suddenly open by themselves and scare him. Ainn watches excitedly as the magnificent doors open automatically. He wonders, why does a classroom need such advanced mechanisms? When he steps inside, before him opens the view of an exquisite lecture hall filled with students. Some watched with interest, some indifferently, and one even fell asleep right during the lesson. Anne looks around the class, sees few students, and feels relieved that it might be easier for her to fit in. Soon after entering, he smiled and introduced himself, Rook, the instructor of magical engineering and their class teacher, and asked that all students be present on the first day. Rook says their class is special. It was entrusted to him after the previous teacher retired. He does not complicate things. His expectations are simple. He wants only one thing from them: to deliver results. After a short and straightforward speech, he simply dismissed the class, and the students froze in surprise at how suddenly everything ended. Before leaving, Rook adds that students can skip classes if they show results, but twice a year they must take a test. When he left, a lively student named Roland approached Ian and smiled as he introduced himself, saying he got here through the magical engineering exam, and Ian was stunned by how much freedom the academy gives. Roland smiled and waved off and started talking to him. He confessed that he got here through a sword trial, and intrigued and quietly guessed that he might be a half-human, possibly a battle wolf. Suddenly Roland realizes. They say that Ian is the very same rumored student who defeated the veteran examiner and even destroyed Testarina, and the class begins whispering in amazement as this story spreads among the students. Aang blushes and awkwardly tries to make himself smaller, joking that he supposedly failed the test, and Roland admires him even more because of this. He hasn't even had time to introduce himself yet. The door opens and Dill enters the classroom. The students whisper, surprised to see the son of the great marshal walking straight to Ein. Dill approaches Aang and respectfully addresses him, Your Highness. Shocking everyone in the room, he explained that he came to escort Aang around the academy, realizing that he had completely forgotten about the school's free learning system. When Dill extended his hand, the other students watched in admiration and trembled at the humility shown by a person of his stature. Aang, smiling in a friendly manner, introduces herself to Roland and invites him to join their tour of the academy. Embarrassed, Roland declined, saying he had other matters. When Aang left with Dill, he froze in shock. The good guy he had just been chatting with turned out to be the heir to the throne. Dill leads Zane through the academy, showing expansive buildings and impressive halls, and finally a huge library that rivals the castle itself in size. Aang thanks him for the tour, impressed by the scale of the place. Interested, he asks if Dill plans to stay by his side throughout his time at the academy and how that fits with Dill's own studies and training. Aang insists that Dill should not postpone his schedule just for his protection, but Dill does not give up. The prince's safety is above all for him. Seeing that Dill is too serious, Ini tries to ease the tension and suddenly asks about his tastes in women, whether he likes long hair, a certain character, or good people, and this completely caught Dill by surprise. Aang tries to break the tension, asks Dill about his ideal, hoping that this will bring them closer. Dill, after a pause, he says that he likes a woman stronger than him, and recalling Chris, Aang suddenly realizes this is about her. When Dill asks in surprise where the sudden topic came from, she awkwardly says that he just wanted to better understand the one who protects him. Dill admits he would like someone as tall and strong as his father with a good trained physique. Dylan is stunned by this description but still encourages him, says he hopes maybe you will find someone like that. Dylan quietly thanks and adds that others usually mock his preferences, so Ain's words sincerely please him. Feeling that a connection has finally appeared between them, Aang invites Dill to lunch to talk more, a small gesture, but for Aang an important first step to shorten the distance between them. Dill calmly agrees and they walk side by side, and this becomes the beginning of their new friendship. At lunch, Aang imagined how they would eat and laugh friendly with Dill, but reality turned out differently. Dill stood nearby and watched the surroundings, and Aang ate silently, realizing that they had not become closer. He awkwardly continued the meal, and the scene shifted to the nearby female academy Libby. In the female academy, Libby lived a girl named Cludge. Lone found herself among admiring classmates who could not wait to introduce her to their noble relatives. She is praised for her beauty and status, but she politely refuses, explaining that she is a commoner and does not consider herself worthy of making connections with nobles. In her soul, she sighs. Such conversations seem to happen everywhere. Klon gently thanks the girls for thinking so highly of her, but explains that if something happened because of her, the responsibility would fall on the premier, and the girls immediately apologize for rushing her. She responds with a warm smile and says that she hopes everyone will understand each other, and her soft, warm behavior makes the girls blush and flutter with admiration. Ron thinks about his transfer to the academy, where Olivia once studied, and firmly decides to make the most of that short time. Walking alongside classmates, she vows not to waste a single moment and to give all her strength to everything she can do right now. On the outskirts of the capital Ishtalika, inside the night station, a tense night unfolds. Under the moonlight stands a cell with broken bars. Shocked by the report, the night watchman shouted in alarm, a prison escape has occurred. The knights rushed to the cell, stunned and confused. How could the prisoner escape if the reinforced doors opened only with a special magical tool, and there were no signs of a break-in? The commander ordered to establish communication with the lock and demands a list of all night shifts at the station. The escapee was identified, Ledar, a rare vampire half-human, a former adventurer who turned into a ruthless killer and killed countless people for money. Under the moonlit sky of Ishtalika, the fleeing vampire swiftly runs across the rooftops, his cloak fluttering like bat wings, and the knight tries to catch him. He sets out into the night with a sinister smile, surrendering to the freedom and chaos that is approaching. A week passes since Aang entered the academy, after he said goodbye to Roland. He walks alongside Dill, and Dill asks if everything is okay so far. Aang says yes, although freedom at school sometimes puts him at a dead end and he does not always know what to focus on. Then he recalls a rumor about the sudden change of their homeroom teacher, and Dill reacts involuntarily. Dill confesses the former teacher Wolf Magnus was expelled because of his actions and beliefs that challenged the principles of the academy. Once he managed a pharmacy and was an expert in monster poisons, belonging to a noble family connected to Dill's family. However, old cases of discrimination against commoners surfaced during the checks before Ain's enrollment. Because of this, he was removed. Dill explains that although the dismissed man was from a noble lineage, he had no real dignity. He was sent to the Knights to be watched, but he had a past full of offenses. Dill firmly believes that the man deserved harsher punishment, but Ain says he himself does not approve of such actions. He thoughtfully says that nobles and commoners are not really that different, and even as a king, he does not allow himself to look down on others. Dill enthusiastically praises Ain's perspective, saying it is a wonderful way to think. Ain, trying to melt the formality between them, asks Dill to speak more simply, but Dill politely refuses. He is her guard and cannot afford familiarity, so he remains reserved and official. Chris apologized and went to report to the guards, asking Ain not to move from the spot until she returns. Ain agrees, but soon he feels uneasy. He notices how crowded the city is with people. Feeling out of place among the noisy streets, he awkwardly stood out and caught the glances of passers-by. Ain noticed a group of girls in the same uniform as clowns and realized they were their students from the Lyab Women's Academy, standing nearby. Two formidable men bother the girls, insisting that it is dangerous to go without a guard and offering their protection. The girls nervously refuse, but the men become more persistent. A tense scene unfolds on the street, and everyone sees the girls being humiliated. Ain calmly intervenes and asks the men to stop, saying that they are clearly bothering them. The men look at him mockingly, sneer that he interfered, and say he is pretending to be a hero, while Aimee stands firm and asks the girls to step back, assuring that everything is fine. Meanwhile, the thugs, irritated that he ruined their business, approach closer. One of the thugs, in anger, swings at Ein and shouts that he will regret getting involved with adults. Ein deftly dodges and instantly responds with a strike. Ain grabbed the man by the arm and easily threw him to the ground. The scoundrel fell, groaning in pain, and she calmly said that he was the one who attacked first. The rest of the thugs realized that Ein was from the Royal Academy, but still united against him, thinking that together they could handle one boy. Ein nervously raises his hands, trying to calm the situation and apologizing. But his awkwardness only intensifies their mockery. They smirk, considering him scared, not realizing that he is calmly assessing the situation. Ain stands opposite a pile of beaten bandits when Chris returns from patrol. He is clearly angry, and she scolds him, reminding him that she asked him to stay in place while the unconscious men lie scattered behind. She awkwardly admits that he is right, apologizing for her sighs and frustration. Although annoyed, she softens and says that everything is fine after all. He had good intentions, and then jokingly adds that he always gets into some kind of trouble. The group finds themselves in a magnificent hall filled with ancient weapons and mysterious artifacts. Walking together with Chris and Laurel, Ain listens as Chris teasingly mocks him for that reckless act and reminds him that he only received a light punishment and had to write an essay from the king, and Laurel joins in, admitting she was worried but glad he is safe. Ain shyly smiles and admits his mistake while both women warmly scold him, showing their tenderness and care. Queen Laurel of Ishtalaki, a refined dark elf, praises his bravery but reminds him that such actions are risky for the heir to the throne. Though her tone is calm, affection is clearly felt in her words. Walking together, she says she wants to reward him for his deeds and jokingly but warmly calls herself his grandmother. Interested, Ain follows her as she secretly rummages through the royal treasures in search of something meant only for him, and Laurel presents before him a dark, ornate dagger on a velvet cushion. The blade is coal black, all covered in intricate engravings, and she says it suits him perfectly, especially after he absorbed the magical Dalahan stone. Although Ain hesitated to accept such a national treasure, Laurel and others encourage him and insist it fits the image of a royal knight wonderfully. Nervously, he reaches out and lifts the weapon. As soon as he touches it, he feels its strange power. When Ain holds the dagger, a faint light runs along the dark blade, and he marvels at how naturally it lies in his hand, as if it became part of him. And the weight of the weapon. The balance and aura seem perfectly adjusted to him. Laurel looks proudly and asks what he feels. Ain, still stunned, admits the dagger feels like an extension of his own hand and realizes this gift is connected to him more deeply than he expected. Ain joyfully thanks Queen Laurel, calling her grandmother, his smile bright and sincere, and this heartfelt moment catches her by surprise. Her heart skips a beat. Others laugh warmly, the atmosphere becomes light, and Olivia with Chris rush to hug Ain, showering him with affection for how cute and even cooler he is than before, watching the cheerful bustle unfold while the boy she just praised is drowned in affection. Ain proudly shows off his new dagger and says it is a gift from his grandmother. The elegant weapon instantly attracts attention, and a classmate enthusiastically adds that it suits him very well. While they were talking, a little girl with cat ears climbed onto the bed, pouted, and interrupted them. Annoyed that she was being ignored, she insisted on finally being heard and made Ain quickly apologize and pay attention to her. Everyone gathered around the mysterious black crystal sealed in a display case, and the girl with cat ears explains that it is a cursed magical stone that Ain bought at the Majolica shop, but she cannot analyze it at all. She reread countless books but found no clue about its nature. Ain suggests checking the academy library. There is more knowledge there than in castles, but even there no one seems confident. The girl with cat ears mocks Ain, calling him a worthless heir to the throne, and it instantly irritates him. Losing patience, Ain grabs her sensitive ears and pulls, making her scream in pain. A friend sharply scolds him for resorting to fighting, and Ain awkwardly apologizes, admitting that this usually happens between them. The cat girl grumbles about his hot temper. Rubbing her ears, she sighed that they really are getting out of control, and a tense but funny atmosphere settled over the group. The girl with cat ears proposes a risky plan. Let Ain absorb some of the power of this cursed magic stone himself, and Ain hesitates and calls it a rough method. But she insists that it is safe if he takes only a little. Just in case, she mentions the sailing or the destruction of the room if something goes wrong, and he realizes there is no other choice. An agreed to try with a deep breath, asked his friend Klon to step aside while the cat girl removes the seal from the stone. When the seal around the cursed magic stone weakened, Aaron stepped closer and felt a strange pull from it, and the others watched attentive but interested. When he reached out his hand, something trembled. A barely audible vibration ran through the room, and Ain suddenly felt a tremor in his chest, as if the stone was responding to his energy. The others exchanged anxious glances, unsure whether it was working or if something dangerous was about to happen. As soon as Ain touched the cursed magic stone, a dark aura exploded and fiercely swirled around him, and a deep, eerie voice sounded in his head. "I have found you." Klon shouted for Ain to put the stone back. The cat girl panicked, realizing the voice came from the stone itself. The power burst out even stronger, and Ain barely restrained her. His body trembled as he tried to push her back into the box. Dark energy burst from the stone and wrapped around Ain, and 4 huge phantom hands grew from his back. Their power distorted the air and lifted papers and books in the room. Ain was caught not believing her eyes when she realized this energy comes from him, the same cursed power that once belonged to Dullahan. Stunned, he wonders why this power is making itself known again and why it has become even stronger. Ain's body moves on its own. Phantom hands tightly grasp the cursed stone. Energy lashes through it, and the girl screams in panic for him to stop. But he cannot control it. The power forcibly drags him in. He squeezes the stone tighter, the room trembles, and the stone's energy flows into his body. He grits his teeth, realizing he cannot absorb it by willpower. The magical stone itself is consumed by his power. The cat girl rushes to Ain, desperately trying to pull him back while the cursed power spirals out of control. Phantom hands wildly break free, sweep away furniture, and crack the floor. She screams for him to stop, but the absorbing power of the magical stone pulls Ain. The energy bursts out again, tears the walls of the room, and both of them are thrown back by the explosion of power. When the dust settled, Ain weakly got up, feeling heavy fatigue throughout his body. Looked down and was stunned to see that his right hand had transformed, now covered in dark armor that barely pulses with the same cursed energy as the magical stone. The girl looks at him with distrust, realizing this is not temporary. Ain clenches his new hand, his face torn between confusion and shock, while others whisper with fear and awe, wondering who he has become. The power of the cursed stone finally subsided. The room lies in ruins and thick smoke, and Ain stands in the middle, his right hand completely transformed into a dark armored form, faintly pulsing with residual energy. Others look at him in shock and confusion. No one understands what just happened. Broken shards of the magical stone lie in the chest, dull, lifeless. Ain looks at her hand, her voice trembling. "What is this?" While everyone else silently watches, finding no answers, Ain sits at the table still staring at her armored hand, not believing what she sees, and others gather around, trying to understand what just happened. He says the body moved on its own, as if trying to absorb the cursed magic stone. The cat girl instantly realized this could have caused a resonance between the magic stones he already had and this one. She insisted he did not want to absorb it, but the transformation itself says otherwise. The air grew tense because everyone understood. Something much deeper was happening inside him than they expected. Earlier that same day, Anne spoke with Magna, the merchant who sold him the cursed magic stone, and she explained that some rare stones have a special resonance, a mysterious, invisible attraction that pulls them toward each other. The Dullahan stone and the Demon Lord stone were vivid examples, as if they responded to each other through the connection of previous owners. According to her, the stones seem to have their own will and are drawn to each other to reunite. Maggialica's warning echoed in his mind. If two such stones resonate too strongly, something uncontrollable might awaken in the bearer. After the explosion, the room turned into chaos, debris scattered everywhere. Anne sat on the floor, still stunned by the armored hand that appeared. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Chris jumped at the loud knock. Panic spread among them. Clown was making excuses, but Chris stubbornly insisted on entering. In desperation, the group hurriedly hid Ein's transformation so she wouldn't see the destruction inside, and just before Chris entered, Ein's armor suddenly disappeared, so the room looked chaotic but harmless. As soon as Chris entered, she saw the trio nervously bustling, trying not to show panic. She asked what the noise was, and they awkwardly waved it off. Noticing the box in her hands, the cat girl instantly widened her eyes. Whatever was inside immediately sparked curiosity and tension in her. The tension instantly dissipated when the box contained a luxuriously decorated book. Ain and Clown looked enchanted by its design and shuddered when she proudly admitted that the book had cost her a whole year of pocket money. Meanwhile, Chris quietly agreed to take on its delivery, although he was still embarrassed by the previous chaos. The cat girl proudly revealed that the luxurious book was written by a famous elf who had studied only one subject all his life, the Demon Lord. Tension ran across Anne's face as she realized what it was about. Cat girl, excited and impatient, opened it without hesitation. She was so eager to find out what was inside. As soon as the book opened, Cat girl froze. She could not read a single word. It was written in ancient Elvish language, the script so old and complicated that even most elves could no longer decipher it. She panicked over wasted efforts, and Clown calmly pointed EIN to a strange mark between the pages. Browsing the book, Ian was stunned to notice that the portrait of the Dullahan looked just like an ordinary person. Claude felt that the man in the picture strangely resembled Ian herself, and for a moment the air became tense while the cat girl grumbled that she wanted to read further, not just look at pictures. After the others left, Ini decided it was time to go out, leaving her with a pout and irritation. Chris stayed behind to sort out deliveries. Seeing the decorated book on the table, her curiosity got the better of her. She picked up the book, read the title, Biography of the Demon Lord and His Assistants, and was curiously surprised. What kind of book was this? She slowly began to open it. Curiosity overcame Chris, and she peeked inside the book. She came across an illustration of an elegant, mysterious woman, the Elder Lick. Enchanted by the image, she completely forgot about the time until she suddenly remembered her errands and hurriedly began preparing to take the forgotten package. During the school assembly, the teacher solemnly announced the upcoming contest in the academic district, an event meant to strengthen ties between different academies. AINN read the details and learned with interest about the various contests. Like oratory, fencing, and magic, he looked interested. His classmate with cat ears even squealed with delight, but Anne calmly said that their class would not participate, and this shocked the others. AIM learned that only the upper classes first and second would participate in the next event because they were far ahead of everyone in skill. Understanding why their group was informed so late, he took it indifferently. A classmate went off to explore, and Ain headed to the training ground. Greeting his instructor Kaiser, he prepared for another day of practice and tuned himself for training, carefully checking if the armor was securely fastened. His instructor Kaiser rarely allowed himself softness, but this time showed rare care and before starting made sure everything was in order. As soon as the session began, Kaiser activated the control panel, and a magical projection began to emerge in the arena. Signal and the ANES combat training began. He had not yet encountered that giant red bison that Kaiser summoned to the training arena. The instructor reminded him that although the creature could not kill, its attacks could still cause serious damage, and Ain confidently replied that he had defeated it more than once and this time wanted to try a new strategy. Huge red bison roared wildly. The arena trembled as it charged at Ain, and calm and focused Ain drew his sword, ready to face the beast face to face. While Kaiser stood in shock at the sudden surge of the creature's strength, Ong gripped the sword hilt tighter and met the red bison's charge face to face. Beneath them, the earth cracked as two forces collided in an explosion of crude, unrestrained power. Despite the pressure and trembling ground, Ain stood firm and did not let the beast's immense strength defeat him. With a surge of strength, Ain roared and hurled the massive red bison across the arena. Striking the creature to the ground, breathing heavily and feeling victorious, he celebrated his success while it struggled, trying to get up. Steam still rose from his body after the powerful clash. Kaiser slapped Ain on the head, scolding him for recklessly meeting the red bison's charge head-on. Ain nervously laughed, trying to justify his action. But the instructor's anger only grew. He demanded safer strategies from Einstein, not such crazy stunts. After an exhausting day of training, I sit relaxed in a cafe with his friends. While we were talking, he suddenly said he would not participate in the Academy's district competitions. Others also shared their excitement about the upcoming showcase match, and when I learned that Dill would be playing, I lit up with joy and eagerly awaited the chance to cheer for him during the match. When Ain was sitting in the cafe, he suddenly noticed Claude and her friends approaching, and it caught him by surprise. He awkwardly tried to hide, but that only made things worse. When Claude noticed him, her calm expression changed. She pouted and was clearly displeased with his reaction. This threw Ain off balance and made him stumble over his explanations. Ain tensed as Chloe and her friends sat at the table right next to him. The situation became very awkward, especially when the girls started chatting about the heir to the throne and asked Claude to tell them about him, and the longer the conversation dragged on, the more Ain's heart pounded. They awkwardly recalled the day when the prince saved her, an event connected to him. Claude spoke about the heir to the throne so warmly that admiration shone in her eyes. She called him kind, brave, and someone who truly cares about others. While nearby, listening, Ain felt confusion and embarrassment. She quietly moved and whispered how grateful she was to be near the prince. He barely restrained himself while the girls enthusiastically showered the crown prince with compliments, praising his noble character. Claude seemed to enjoy his reaction, teasing him a little to make him embarrassed. When she mentioned how closely the prince was connected to the first princess, Ain's embarrassment only increased. She realized that Claude was deliberately making his life harder. Anne appeared unexpectedly and immediately drew everyone's attention. The girls froze in shock upon seeing the prince himself. While Claude calmly explained that she had business in the castle, Ain smiled and extended his hand, offering to escort her back. She accepted with a quiet laugh, her face softened, and the others watched with admiration. Anne smiled as Claude teased him for hiding earlier, and he admitted that he was trying to make up for it, gently taking her hands, and she blushed from surprise. After a moment, he apologized and left, leaving the other girls impressed by the sight of their friendly and charming prince. As the student walked through the academy grounds, near the entrance he noticed a suspicious group loitering, and his calm expression instantly changed to worried. When one of the strangers turned to him with a sinister smile, the air instantly tensed. It felt like trouble was about to unfold. In the great arena, explosions thundered, magic and battles filled the air with energy, and the massive structure stood proudly, attracting crowds from all corners. Ain and his companion eagerly raised their eyes to the scale of this place, impressed by its size and grandeur, while the tournament atmosphere grew around them. When Ain wished him luck for the upcoming fencing demonstration, Dill tried to appear calm, but the tension was breaking out. Ain immediately noticed his nervousness and completely caught him off guard. Embarrassed, Dill admitted he was nervous and ashamed because he had shown the prince his weak side, and Ain teased him. It was rare to see that side of him, and she enjoyed seeing it. Embarrassed but restrained, Dill insisted he could not relax his formality and refused to call the prince by his name. Ain smiled with a slight smirk, pleased by his strictness. Dill apologized and stepped away, and Ain pondered. She noticed a more human side of his usually impassive guard. Ain said that Dill still refused to call him by his name, and Chris quietly laughed, relieved that they were getting along. Preparing to head to the arena, Ain asked to stop by the academy first. He hesitantly explained that he had forgotten the pen his grandfather gave him, and Chris agreed to take him, saying there was still time before the match started. As Ain walked through the quiet territory of the academy, he was struck by how spacious and empty it had become without the students. A barely perceptible scent in the air caught his attention, a mixture of several aromas from the cafe terrace. Interested, he froze and felt something unusual when a soft rustle sounded nearby. Inside the academy walls, a man in a hood grabbed a student with animal ears and with one heavy stomp pinned him to the floor, muttering irritably that the students were on vacation and that they were inside. What a nuisance. The captive pleaded with him, saying he had only come to retrieve what he had forgotten in the classroom. The man smiled, admitted there was actually no reason to hold him, decided to release him later, and showed a cold smile that hinted he should not be fully trusted. The man in the hood suddenly changed his mind. He grabbed the frightened student by the collar and declared that he would take him as a trophy of his mission. Having revealed his true nature, he admitted that he was a vampire and hadn't drunk blood for weeks, smiling ominously and saying that he had never tasted the blood of a battle wolf, aloud asking what it tasted like, approaching while the boy struggled in fear. The vampire leaned in close, his fangs gleaming. He admitted that he barely restrained his urges, and with a manic smile warned that he could drink all the boy's blood and kill him in the process. Mad laughter echoed in the room, and the frightened hostage froze, realizing how hopeless his situation had become. The vampire grabbed the bound boy by the neck, enjoying his fear when the door creaked. Ain stepped forward, a calm face hidden behind the sharp tension in his eyes. Realizing what was happening, he looked angrily at the man in the cloak and in a cold, even voice demanded to know what he was doing with his friend. The vampire squeezed the boy's neck tighter while Ain questioned him, insisting on finding out what had happened outside. The vampire seemed completely unimpressed by this. He muttered about how everything had become troublesome, called the fallen useless, and completely underestimated the boy standing before him. The vampire exploded with rage, veins around his eyes bulging, shouting at Ainn that he had complicated everything. Ainn stood calmly and said there would be no problem if he just surrendered, but the vampire refused and assured that he would never return to prison, so silently Ainn reached for his weapon. His face frozen, he was ready to end this fight himself. Ain lunged forward, shouting decisively that he would grab the vampire by force, and they collided in a whirlwind of movement. Ain's blade cut through the air, and the vampire dodged, hissing. With lightning-fast reflexes, Ain tore his bound friend from the enemy's grip, pressing him close while the vampire smirked, impressed by the boy's speed. He demanded to know who had sneaked in and for what purpose he found himself in the academy. The vampire licked his wounded hand with a crooked smile and confessed that he was hired by some aristocrat who had a grudge against this organization. Deciding it was not worth staying here, he prepared to leave, muttering that his service was over. The vampire threw a smoke-screened room, instantly drowned in thick clouds of dust. I quickly gathered myself and peered into the haze when the enemy's voice sounded, claiming he was once an adventurer and had learned to beware of any opponent. Ain clenched his fist, his eyes burning with determination, and he rushed through the smoke. He promised to fight back even if the opponent was much stronger, barely making out through the smoke and realizing that the vampire had much more combat experience, so everything began to turn against him. Memories echoed in his head. Do not reveal your true power recklessly, but when he saw his wounded friends in the enemy's hands, hesitation melted away and his face became stern. The vampire burst from the smoke, his eyes blazing with bloodthirst, threatening to stab him and suck him dry to the last drop. But even before he could strike, a flash of power burst from the boy. The air cracked and the vampire's attack stopped halfway. The vampire's face twisted in shock and pain, blood splattered, and he didn't even have time to realize what had struck him. Ain stood firm, silently and eerily calm. He released his power, summoning a huge phantom hand that tore through the smoke with devastating force. The phantom hand rushed forward, breaking everything in its path and sending shockwaves throughout the room. The force of the blow cracked the floor and walls. He showed the true extent of the power he had been holding back. When the smoke cleared, the room lay in ruins. The walls were covered with cracks, debris scattered everywhere. Ain calmly stood in the middle, and behind him the phantom hand spun protectively like a living shadow. The vampire retreated, staggering, looking with disbelief. Ain's voice cut through the silence, steady and cold, accusing him of harming his friend. Despite the enemy's mockery, there was no doubt in Ain's Aish was ready to end this. The vampire roared with rage, his power exploded, and he threw huge shards all over the room. He mocked Anya for underestimating the adult warriors. He swore he no longer needed his own blood, and Ain reacted instantly. The hand of his phantom caught the shards in the air and shattered them into pieces before they could reach him. The entire hall trembled from the obvious difference in their power. With each exchange, he became smaller, and the vampire's fury burst out. His voice echoed as he shouted for Anya to die. The body lunged with beastly speed, claws cutting the air, but Anya did not flinch. His energy pulsed again. Summoning another spectral hand to intercept the half-swing strike, the blow cracked the floor beneath them. The force of their collision shook the entire building. Ain unleashed a surge of energy. Countless ghostly hands burst from the ground and simultaneously struck the vampire. Overwhelming force wrapped his body, broke through his defense, and pinned him to the floor. The vampire screamed in disbelief and rage, his strength weakening as he struggled under the pressure of the attack. Anya stood firm, face calm, and the enemy's fury turned to panic. After the fierce clash, Ain stood, catching his breath, and the hands of his phantom slowly faded. The vampire lay defeated among the shards, barely conscious. Roland, worried but unharmed, rushed to Anna, confused and scared. Anna calmed him. The danger was over, the enemy neutralized. As he tried to understand what had just happened, Roland recalled how that man muttered something strange before falling, and they both looked at the fallen opponent. Realizing that the attack on the academy was not accidental, and someone had sent him with a purpose still unknown, Ainn and Roland pieced together the picture. The vampire turned out to be a former employee who was fired due to behavior, and Ainn understood that he spoke about being hired by some nobleman with a grudge against the academy. When the puzzle came together, Ainn's face changed, and a faint scent in the air wove from memory a recollection of what had happened earlier near the cafe terrace. Realizing the danger might be even greater, he urgently told Roland to evacuate and call Chris to the terrace. Without hesitation, he turned and ran. Instinct told him this was not the end. Anya came to the cafe terrace. By the water sat a calm figure drinking tea. It was Wolf Magnus, a former teacher who was expelled from the academy. Despite the past, he looked relaxed and greeted Ain with a casually anxious confidence. Anya stood opposite Wolf Magnus and while they talked, realized the man before him was the only one who had a motive to harm the academy. Ain's sharp senses caught a faint smell from the nearby lake. Approaching closer, he confirmed. Beneath the surface hid several magical stones, hinting at a broader plan set in motion by a former teacher. Under the lake, large containers filled with unstable magical stones began releasing wild energy, all designed to overload magical devices throughout the academy, drive them mad, and ultimately cause them to explode. A sinister smile appeared on Wolf Magnus's face. His plan was about to be completed. He could instantly calculate that a bomb was hidden in the building on the lake. He impressed Wolf Magnus, who enthusiastically praised his keen intuition. In return, Magnus revealed his twisted ideology. He hated how the academy blurred the lines between nobility and commoners. To him, the institute was rotten and nurtured those he deemed unworthy, and his words dripped with bitterness as he justified his plan to destroy everything connected to that system. Wolf Magnus unleashed his hatred for the academy and thirst for revenge against those who trampled his status. Filled with rage, he vowed to prove the rightness of his ideals by destroying everything linked to his past. An stood firm and resolutely said he loved his country and the academy and would not allow anyone to harm them. With fire in his eyes, he was ready to stop the wolf at any cost. Wolf revealed that the bomb under the lake was powered by high-quality magical stones, and its destructive force could destroy the entire academy. When the device began to overload, a powerful energy burst forth and the ground trembled. He smiled maliciously. Now no one could stop this, while Ain watched in horror as the explosion threatened to engulf everything. Wolf Magnus, completely insane, shouted that he would destroy everything to the ground and from the ashes raise some almost new Talaku. His laughter rang madly as he declared this destruction the beginning of a great revolution. A distorted triumph froze in his eyes and chaos loomed all around. Wolf proclaimed that he would personally revive Ishtalak in a new, pure form, and Ain, not noticing the deception in his words, rushed forward without hesitation. Declaring that Wolf was truly guilty, he rushed with all determination to stop this madness before it consumed everything. Ain endured a barrage of shock waves, deflecting each one while explosions thundered around him, and suddenly realized that these explosions were caused by a magical instrument. Ain stayed on his feet while Wolf begged him to flee. The explosion would consume them both. Calmly, he replied that he would not die, standing firm as the chaos around only grew. Wolf boldly declared that from a special chair he would watch the revival of Ishtalaki, boasting that the precious stones on his body would save him from any explosion, but he had not yet finished speaking. A hit precisely broke through his defense and pierced him mid-sentence. Wolf proudly boasted that the jewels on his body would save him from the explosion, watching the revival of Ishtalaki. Even before he could act, I rushed forward swiftly, delivered a decisive blow that broke through Wolf's defense and stunned him. Ain struck Wolf with a powerful blow, completely breaking his defense. Shocked and unable to believe his own eyes, Wolf realized he could not match Ain's strength. Falling, he heard Ain coldly say that his ambitions would never come true. After defeating Wolf, Ain realized that the bomb was still active and rushed to disarm it. Ignoring Wolf's mocking warning that careless handling could accelerate the explosion, Ain fearlessly jumped from the terrace straight to the source of danger. Ain dives underwater and quickly notices a large bomb powered by magical stones. He thinks that it is unlikely to disarm it by conventional methods, so he considers the risk of using his own ability to neutralize magical energy and try to stop the explosion. Ain uses his power and neutralizes the magical stones. But when he absorbs so many at once, the taste turns out to be too strong and disgusting. Despite this, the stone's glow fades and he breathes out with relief it worked. And breaks free from the water and collapses, exhausted but safe. Wolf laughed, brushing off the defeat, but there was surprise in him. Iron actually managed to disarm the bomb. Chris asks Anne for details, and Wolf Magnus is taken away. Anne explains with horror that Wolf planted the bomb at the bottom of the lake. It was part of a coup. He is amazed after all there's so much going on. The real targets are supposed to be important people of the country who all gathered today for the competition. Einstein begins to feel that there is something more hidden in this plan than it seems. While Chris and the others talk about the exhibition and the presence of the royal family, Ian suddenly realizes the real danger. He suspects that there is more than one bomb, and this raises the stakes even higher. Wolf confesses AINN figured everything out. Mocks him, saying that he won't make it in time. Ain insists that only he can defuse the bomb, but Chris replies that he will go instead. Wolf laughs maniacally, and Ain quickly guesses that the bomb is probably in the arena and calls everyone to hurry. And he stubbornly refuses to run away alone, because in his thoughts are his grandfather, friends, and clone. Chris understood everything and decided to go with him, ready to risk her life, and they both rushed off together. During the sword duel, Dill's childhood friend hit and scored a point against him. Surprising both the audience and the royal observers, now both have 1 point each, and Dill's unexpected fight captured everyone's attention. While the match continues, Dill notices that the prince is not in the stands and feels a chill of anxiety. The prince promised to cheer him up. Where is he? Where did he disappear to? The third round of the match begins, but Dill cannot concentrate. He is worried because the prince is missing. Even as the fight intensifies, he thinks about the missing prince and it torments him. Ain and his group break through the crowd in search of the second bomb. They instantly realized the front gate is overcrowded, so it is much more convenient for the enemy to act near the back gate. After asking about the area, they suddenly remember the park and the bronze statue of the first king near the back gate and instantly put the puzzle together. They think the bomb must be there. Aim instantly finds the second bomb under the statue and points to the sharp smell coming from the bushes. The bomb is connected and already pulsates with unstable energy. It is visible it is about to go off. Ain sees the bomb starting to explode under the statue, and Chris thinks they didn't make it. An refuses to give up, pushes himself to the limit to stop it at the last moment. Chris loudly calls Ain, desperately hoping that he will manage to stop the explosion at the last moment. Aim gives all his power in the final surge to save everyone. Aim rushes straight at the bomb. He gives all his strength, stretches out his hand decisively to stop it before it is too late. Ain stands opposite his opponent in a tense duel. While his opponent is focused and stubbornly striving to finally win, Ain's attention keeps wandering elsewhere. This annoys his opponent. Dill is eager to prove that he is the strongest in the academic district. Standing before Ainn, full of determination. And the clash intensifies. Ain shouts Dill's name, the voice full of the tension of their duel. Ain stands ready, resolutely determined to win the match. He addresses Dill, clearly making it known this time he will be the victor. Spectators watch the fierce confrontation between them. Dill lands a clean, decisive blow on Ain, knocking him back. Dill was declared the winner of the match by just 1 point. The crowd erupts in applause as Dill walks away victorious, and everyone in the stands reacts to the result. Ain and his friends were granted permission to go out a reward for dealing with the wolf, so they headed to the castle town to shop and enjoy the day. After shopping, Ain, Olivia, and Chris strolled through the seaside town. Ain felt a bit guilty for buying so many clothes, but the girls reassured him, saying it was okay since he is the crown prince. He was more shocked by the price. It turned out to be much more expensive than he expected, and when the wind blew, he suddenly felt cold. The girl noticed that Ain was cold from the sea breeze and advised him to take a scarf because it was getting colder. Ain was bewildered with surprise, realizing that he did not have this. Admiring the view, they enthusiastically discuss that the bay has a beautiful crescent shape, but a little further many reefs can be seen. They learned that the crescent-shaped harbor was formed after a monster attack. The monster, called the Seeker, It was gigantic, larger than the country's warships, and could command the waves, all caused by a single monster. They find out that the monster that reshaped the harbor's outlines is the sea dragon. The girl froze in shock while they processed this information. They say that only one sea dragon caused so much destruction, sinking ships and taking many lives over centuries. In Ishtalak's history, only the demon lord took more lives. Every 100,200 years a sea dragon appears, and everyone asks, was it ever truly defeated? Whispered rumors say it would not be surprising if the sea dragon appeared again soon. The knight reassures them, saying, Their research on countermeasures made a breakthrough, the country became stronger and now it promises to protect them no matter what. After the conversation, one of the girls says, "I want to go to the store." The group instantly agrees to set off and Chris is reminded that she also needs to look for something. They depart together, joyful and eager for the next stop. They enter a well-known store, captivated by the jewelry and shoes in the display window. Splitting up, the group begins to explore. Some inspect the first floor while others go upstairs, enjoying the elegance and friendliness of the place. Approaching the seller, hesitating slightly, says that they want to buy something. Later the scene shifts to a quiet night, and under the moonlight someone makes a toast. Great celebration is raging in the palace, everyone has gathered and is joyfully marking the occasion. Ein sits at the table with friends and notices how relaxed his grandfather looks today. The mood is cheerful, and the king is in a wonderful humor. Exclaiming how wonderful this day is, Ein celebrates her 8th birthday. He is given a silver bracelet and a special pen with the kingdom's coat of arms, and he beams with happiness. Ein sincerely thanks his mother, Claude, for the gifts, but when he notices that Chris is missing, he asks where she is. Then they ask Ein to step out onto the balcony alone for a moment. He remains confused, not understanding why. Anne goes out onto the balcony and notices it is snowing and has become colder. Suddenly Chris appears nervously happy that Anne actually came. Anne is surprised to see her and thinks it is just a coincidence. And asks Chris where she was, and she tries to come up with an excuse, but she is caught lying. Chris is confused and overwhelmed with emotions, and Anne mentally thinks that Chris doesn't know how to lie at all. He tries to muster courage to say something, but hesitates and remains a bit embarrassed. Chris gently wraps a scarf around Anne's neck as a birthday present. She is clearly shy, her cheeks are burning as she wishes him a happy birthday. Anne suddenly realizes this is the same scarf that Chris wanted to buy earlier. She is wildly embarrassed and can barely explain. She admits that she was too nervous to give it to him earlier. Anne is noticeably touched and Chris nervously fusses and apologizes, saying this is her first time giving a gift. In return, Anne also gives Chris a gift, a necklace that he bought in the same store. Chris was pleasantly surprised and sincerely touched. Mentally, she admires the beauty of the necklace and is glad that Anne gave it to her. Anne says that he bought different gifts for Clyde and his mother, but insisted that Chris receive hers first. It was a thank you for always taking care of him. Chris blushes and whispers that she is not worthy of this, but Ain't insists. He gladly agrees and promises to wear her new scarf every day. Chris holds the necklace that Ain gave her and blushes deeply. Ain notices how red her face is, but Chris quickly blames it on the cold. In reality, she is just very happy and embarrassed. The story continues on a lonely island surrounded by water. With a crash, something big hit the sea, sending a fountain of water into the sky. Deeper in the forest, a young man named Bats instantly sensed danger and shouted to his partner, "Jump." Because the threat was approaching rapidly, they jumped to him without hesitation, seeking safety. Bats delivers a powerful strike, a clean hit. Leonardo loudly celebrates, proudly showing off his bright trick. But others immediately expose him, reminding that the prince did most of the work, providing the perfect start. Leonardo's boasting does not go unnoticed, and teammates will not let him get away with it so easily. A month ago, the academy announced a field trip, but it was not an ordinary trip. Instead of usual outings, they were going to a remote island near the continent of Ishtal. Teacher explained that their excursions were not like usual, and this meant real trials awaited ahead. Some students were excited while the Bats looked completely unimpressed, as if already anticipating trouble. The teacher explains the true purpose of the excursion. Students will be divided into mixed teams of 4 and they will have to cross the designated island on foot in 3 days, but here is the catch. Monsters roam the island. No food, drinks, weapons, or magical items forbidden. They will have to survive and procure and protect everything on their own. The announcement shocks everyone. The students were asked to form teams of 4 and Bats was worried that, being a lower grade student, he would be sidelined, but Roland and the others immediately invited him to join. A bit awkwardly and with trembling in their chests, they formed a team: Bats, Leonardo, Roland, and another classmate ready for the challenge ahead. Ein's team consists of students with the highest first-class ratings, and Leonardo just laughs it off, confident it will be easy. Dill warns not to let their guard down. Monsters are not the only danger, and as the group's guard, he must keep everyone alert. Despite the carefree mood, tension is palpable in the air before what lies ahead. As night falls overhead, the group decides to set up camp, and Leonardo is asked to prepare the site. Calm and collected, he takes the device and carefully scans the surroundings, emitting small energy pulses to check the ground, and focusedly begins his routine. He breathes evenly, preparing for the next step. The group finished setting up camp under the protection of Leonardo's glowing barrier. It was strong enough to keep monsters out of the camp, and hunger subsided thanks to the rabbit caught earlier. The next problem was water. All the sources they found were murky, so, having the barrier, they switched to searching for something drinkable. Roland, burning with an idea, suggested using a magical tool to purify the murky water, but Dill reminded that bringing tools was against the rules. Smiling, Roland calmly replies that he will make one right here. Using monster stones, he quickly creates a purifier, explaining how to redirect their magic towards cleansing, while the group watches in amazement as he effortlessly completes the task. Roland's tool works flawlessly. The water is instantly purified and even enriched with minerals. The group is delighted, praising the taste and calling him a genius. Dill is stunned by how easily Roland accomplished this. While they rest, AINN thoughtfully considers the roles in the team. He and Batty stand on the front line, leading the fight, while Leonardo and Roland hold the rear and support them. The team bursts into laughter, feeling unity and confidence in how smoothly they work together, and AINN begins to believe that they can really do this. But this mood instantly fades when Leonardo indifferently reports that he found mushrooms that look extremely poisonous. Group 10 discusses the risk. Some poisonous fruits are almost indistinguishable from edible ones. Aim steps forward and decides to examine them, activating the skill Poison Dissolution X and Absorption, then carefully begins to study the fruit, planning to absorb and break down any poisons without attracting others' attention. After AINN checked the fruit with his skill, he confirmed it was edible, and the group looked surprised. How did he manage to distinguish them? But he says it so casually, as if he remembered it from a book. Everyone celebrates the extra food, each trying to claim credit, but Dill admits it's the prince's merit. The mood is uplifted. They finish preparations and get ready to eat. While the rabbit settled over the fire, the group gathered. The smell stirred their appetite. They were already ready to rush at the food, but Dill initially refuses, saying he has his own field rations. But the others insisted, asked him to join and eat together. Ain't noted that it would be a shame to miss out, and that even he eating would benefit the team. Dill accepts their invitation and agrees to eat with them. In return, he extends a few of his tea leaves. The group is shocked. Everyone thinks this is a rule violation, but Dill reassures them. This is an allowed tradition, which the Academy turns a blind eye to every year. The group gladly accepts tea, deciding that a bit of comfort is okay. When everything calmed down, Dill casually drops a shocking piece of news. Leonardo's engagement was arranged, and everyone was surprised, especially Leonardo himself. He was left speechless and embarrassed. The rest immediately start teasing him, demanding details, and Ain murmurs that he thought they were friends. The group sets off on the second day of their journey, full of energy. But as soon as they delve into the forest, thick fog begins to creep around. Visibility instantly drops. They can't see even a few steps ahead, and they feel they must be very careful not to get separated. Wandering through the fog, Roland became exhausted and, barely holding on, slipped near a cliff. Ain asks if there is a spell to dispel the fog, but Roland says it will only work with the right ingredients, which he does not have. When Roland falls, Ain bursts in and at the last moment grabs him, saving him from a dangerous fall. Having saved Roland, the group finally catches their breath. Ain Warren also says she will be careful. But as soon as he looked around, Dill was already gone. The fog becomes thicker and thicker. They call out in confusion and panic. No one answers. Dill disappeared without a trace. An rushed forward, desperately searching for Dill, but Roland stopped him at the last moment. The fog was too thick, and it was already too late. Ain orders Roland and Leonardo to stay close and protect the bats, resolutely deciding not to let anyone else disappear. The group tightens ranks, realizing this is much more dangerous than they thought. Suddenly, a huge swarm of crow moths appears. They are considered one of the main threats of the island, weak individually, but strong in numbers and in the ability to merge into a single swarm. Leonardo immediately warns that they are much more dangerous than they seem, especially because of how quickly they surrounded the group. Aim prepares to use his illusion skill if something goes wrong. For now, they only think about escape. Leonardo warns if you get caught, you will be paralyzed and these creatures will lay eggs inside your body. The group reacts instantly, dodging attacks. Aim and Leonardo rush forward, clearing the way, and the rest follow closely behind, trying to break free before they are surrounded. Barely escaping the swarm, the group finds shelter in a cave. Exhausted and gasping, he stops for a moment to compose himself and admits that he lost self-control because he was worried about Dill. Leonardo notes that shouting like that in battle was dangerous, and he apologizes because emotions got the better of him. While they rest in the cave, the group tensely discusses the situation. The appearance of a magical creature not from this island raises suspicions, but Roland reassures them Dill, the strongest academy student, is probably fine. They looked at the map and suddenly realized they had already crossed half the island. Leonardo explains that the fog is the territory of raven butterflies. If they stay, they will soon be found. There is no other way, so they move forward. AIM decides that in the next 2 days they need to advance as far as possible. The team agrees and after resting prepares to set out. The next morning they rushed forward, climbing cliffs, rushing through forests and constantly staying alert, but soon the familiar piercing cry of the raven butterflies sounded again. The threat has not retreated. Exhausted from continuous movement, the group finally agrees to rest. They think about hiding in a nearby cave, but the bats notice alarming signs. The gravel has changed color and a purplish tint. He anxiously explains that this is miasma, probably from old magic or monster remains, so the cave is dangerous. They decide to keep their distance since such places can turn into deadly traps. Bats explain that miasma is poisonous to both humans and animals. Only the monsters living there have immunity. Others admire his knowledge. He says it is thanks to his father, Baron Krim, who constantly deals with dangerous creatures and teaches him a lot. At night the group sets up camp and finally allows themselves to rest by the fire. While the others sleep, Anne sits by the fire and thinks. He is worried Dill would not disappear just like that. And if Wolin confirmed that the island is safe, then they would never miss the threat of crow butterflies. This pushes him to another thought. Maybe the island has nothing to do with it, and the matter is in their group or in the situation itself. While the fire crackles and others sleep under the barrier, AIM puts the pieces together. Something clicks. He suddenly realizes the strangeness is not in the island. It is because of their current situation. Quietly, he approaches Roland and asks for a moment. Determined to check what he is beginning to suspect, AIM interrogates Roland about the magical device he created for water. He wants to know if it can also contain other things, for example, miasma. Roland thinks and says that it probably can. AINN asks to borrow one of the tools. Roland gives it to him, interested but completely unaware of AINN's deeper motive. AINN tightly grips the tool in his hand, ready to test his theory. Again, the group is brutally attacked by crow butterflies. Now they are even more aggressive than before. From early morning they continuously advance, pushing everyone to the limit. When they fight back, AINN suddenly calls Leonardo. He needs a moment in the middle of the battle because he clearly intends to do what he has already suspected. While the fight rages, AIN asks Leonardo if his barrier can stop the poison. Hearing that it can, he rushes forward without hesitation. The whole group froze at his sudden movement. AIM demands to immediately raise the barrier. This clearly indicates that he is going for something dangerous and possibly reckless. AIM rushes forward despite the danger, completely ignoring the panic behind. The swarm was already sneaking up. Leonardo finally activated the barrier and at the last moment sealed the group inside. Crow butterflies crash into him, cut off from their prey. Crow butterflies hit the barrier, screeching piercingly, forced to retreat. As soon as it became safe, the group collapsed to the ground, exhausted, catching their breath. Ain Kumlai said that their ranks had thinned only for a moment, ordered everyone to rest and drink water, and before anyone could respond, he turned and left alone, leaving the others confused and worried. Ain suddenly leads the swarm away from the group and without hesitation throws himself directly into the swarm of crow butterflies. Surrounded on all sides, he draws all their attention to himself, creating distance between the enemy and his comrades, while the others watch in shock as he goes deeper into danger, realizing too late that Ain consciously became bait. Aim throws the device to the ground with all his might and breaks it. A dense cloud bursts out and explodes outward. From the explosion, the swarm scatters. Crow butterflies fly in all directions. Amid the chaos, AINN stands in the center. With one move, he pushed the enemies away. Everyone rushes to him, shocked. Despite the poisonous mist, he is unharmed, calm and smiling, and he himself explains that his resistance to poisons protects him from it. When the threat receded for a moment, the others finally realized that his act was by no means reckless, it was deliberate. They rushed to AINN, scolded him for such a risk, and admitted that they were worried, and AINN apologized. And they quickly moved on, deciding not to linger. Soon the group reaches the target peninsula, but instead of relief, they are overwhelmed by confusion. They realize that something is very wrong. At the destination, they find Dill safe and with an unshaken expression. He praises Ain's cleverness during the swarm attack and notes how well the whole group works together. Dill then reveals the truth. The excursion was also a test arranged by their families, and he was secretly assigned to protect me along with Christina. It became clear that this mission was about growth, not just survival. Ain steps forward, serious for the first time. He looks Dill straight in the eyes and says that his reckless act really scared him. Dill is stunned. He understands that Ain is not joking, and although he promised to protect him under any circumstances, he makes it clear that he no longer wants to be protected at the cost of trust. Ain admits that he does not want a relationship built on ranks or orders, and says that Dill's actions hurt him much more than he expected, and asks for only one promise: never to make him worry like that again. Dill feels the weight of these words and quietly agrees because he understands Ain is not rejecting protection, he demands trust. Ain relieves the tension. He says that titles and ranks do not matter to him, asks Dill to call him simply by his name, and directly adds he wants sincerity, not formalities. After a short pause, Dill silently agrees, quietly accepting Ain's request and the connection it carries. Dill accepts the request, calls Ain by name, and sincerely promises that from now on they will walk side by side as equals. Ain freezes in surprise, realizing that their relationship has finally changed. Tension melts away, and everyone bursts out laughing together. Ain says that this is only for today, and Dill agrees without hesitation. They shake hands, both relieved for the first time. Everything between them seems simple and sincere. Group gathers on the shore, smiling and relieved. When the trial ended, they were told that the excursion was over, and the ship was already waiting to take them back. Together, they set off home to the capital. On the way back on the ship, Ain suddenly realizes Christina had been watching them from the forest all along. She admits that she hid her presence with spells and closely watched the events. Ain is surprised that he noticed her at all, explaining that he felt something familiar mixed with the magic of raven butterflies, and Christina is stunned and confused by how easily he uncovered it. The ship sails on, and suddenly the sea explodes. A huge magical beast emerges, tearing the water and shaking the vessel. Christina orders everyone to step back, and the crew prepares the cannons. Intuition suggests something is wrong. Such a creature should not be here, and the way back instantly turns into a deadly danger. Giant sea beast attacks, and with one blow tears a hole in the ship. Its size and fangs are enough to crush the vessel with one bite, but before it could finish the attack, a giant whirlpool formed, pulling the monster into the sea and swallowing it whole, leaving everyone stunned by how quickly everything happened. From the vortex of the whirlpool emerges a giant sea dragon, making everything around seem tiny. Its very appearance fills the space and confirms a much more terrible threat has come. Sea dragon rises and roars, its power covering the entire area. He grabs and effortlessly devours the kraken. Realizing they are in danger, the group hastily retreats, for this is far from something they could handle. The ship manages to break free, and the sea dragon rises above the waves, confidently ruling over the ocean. Ain suddenly realizes that they have witnessed the Sea King himself. After that meeting, the dragon no longer chased them, and although the incident was told, the creature never appeared again. Half a year passed without serious adventures. Life at the academy returned to its usual rhythm, everything focused on studying and training, and the sea dragon never appeared again. When the group disperses, they say simple farewells, and that day remains a quiet but unforgettable memory. The next day at the academy, life goes on. The farewell of Ain't exchange was barely noticed, was immediately thrown back into training, and he just shrugged with a smile. He is only 9, and without any difficulties, he is already moving into the 3rd year, stepping into a new chapter of life. Christina approaches closer, gently adjusts Ain's collar, and says that he is crooked. Caught off guard, he tensed but quickly thanked her. A moment passed softly, leaving him embarrassed while she smiled and withdrew. When Ain and Christina are about to leave, Knight suddenly bursts in and sharply interrupts them. Christina is urgently called back to the castle. She is led by guards. She apologizes and asks Ain to wait, and he calmly agrees, watching as she is quickly taken away. Suddenly, Christina suggests making a hook, and breaks away completely, not waiting for an answer. The guards froze suddenly, and Ain hesitates for a fraction of a second, puzzled by what is happening, then rushes after her. Ain learns that a monster has appeared in the country. At the national level, an alarm has been raised, and Christina has already set out to stop it. They quickly return to the capital. Ain is escorted inside, where everyone is tensely preparing for a crisis that cannot be handled by ordinary means. Ain felt that something was wrong as soon as he entered the room. There are not many knights, and everyone looks tense. He announces his return and sees the royal council gathered. It is clear that everything is much more serious than expected. Ain bursts in and freezes at the sight of who she sees, Christina next to the king, and it becomes clear who she really is. The meeting continues, and the king decisively takes power into his own hands. They talked about the crisis. A sea dragon appeared near the port town of Magna, and the situation rapidly escalated. The king says in a heavy voice that the situation is much worse than expected. Despite all attempts, the threat has not subsided, and then the truth is revealed. There are not one but two sea dragons. The room fell silent when everyone finally realized how serious the crisis was. The truth hit like a slap in the face. Dragons are involved here, and Anne froze in shock as the scale of the disaster became clear. Knowing that without action sacrifices are inevitable, they decided to send Christina so that she would act at the highest level. Everyone in the room understood. There is no time to hesitate. He panics, demanding to throw all troops into battle. The king sighed heavily. We have already sent all the forces we could, both the fleet and the adventurers. Most of the knights must stay to defend the capital. Having no better way out, they have to rely on Christina. Let her handle the crisis. We are gripped on when memories of S-Dragon resurfaced. He admits he is scared and wants to run away, although he knows that grandfather is right. Torn between reason and fear, he stands frozen. If I deface what will come. Ain understands that more than the sea dragon, what frightens him is not death or fear itself, but the thought of losing the people who believe in him. When Christina smiles and calls him by name, this pain hits him the hardest. Ain steps forward and clearly states his choice. He himself will go to Magna and meet Sea Dragon, accepting the danger and taking responsibility for what will happen next. The king exploded with rage, called Ain reckless, and sternly demanded what he was thinking. The hall fell silent. He was reminded that he is the heir to the throne and his life is no longer just his own. But despite the pressure and others' looks, Ain stood firm and calmly said he understood. He will not change his mind. Ain refuses to stay behind. He cannot silently wait while the danger grows, because he believes that meeting the sea dragon is the duty of a king, as the first king once did. Mother desperately tries to stop him, but Ain makes it clear he will go to Magna at any cost. Ain firmly asks to be allowed to join Chris and proclaims his determination without hesitation. After a brief silence, the king accepts his decision and says he understands. Shock fills the room, and Ain looks at his grandfather, knowing his path is now set. Olivia suddenly pulled Ain into her embrace. Defending him, she angrily rejects the idea of using force, openly protesting and calling the decision unwise. King calmly but authoritatively ordered Ain to be taken out of the room and led to Katima's chambers. While Olivia is taken away to rest, guards rush in and try to restrain Ain by the king's order to keep him inside. Olivia panics, rushes to him, and screams, but he is carried away despite her protests. Court is in shock. Ain's resolve their issue, and his duty as crown prince faces a severe test. Ain pounds on the sealed door. He panics, realizing his magic cannot break it. Learning that there are two sea dragons, his fear spikes. Thoughts of Chris and others still fighting outside overwhelm him, and trying to stay calm, he clenches his fists, desperately wanting to break out and help before it is too late. Ain learns that a powerful ceiling has been placed on his room and his magic is powerless. He is told he does not have enough strength to face a threat like the sea dragon, and he must stay inside, wait, and pray that Chris returns alive. He understood his weakness. Ain clenches a fist, torn by fear and helplessness, and when he prays alone, he feels a strong urge to look around the room. He notices what he had missed before. The seal itself hides a clue, and when he realizes there may still be a way to act, despair suddenly turns into clarity and determination. Message: a strange black crystal hidden in the room. As soon as he touches it, and cursed magic stone reacts wildly. Realizing that this object is the source of the seal, he finally understood what was suppressing his power. Dark energy unfolded like wings, confirming that his suppressed power had finally broken free. The backlash hits Katima. She freezes and cannot move, while Ainn stands in the center, losing control as the released energy relentlessly spreads. Some general presence envelops Ein, and magic bursts out wildly. The power of the stone weakens, the seal strengthens, and the flare subsides. In the safe embrace, Ain loses consciousness, sinking into warmth and comfort, as if being embraced and led back to himself. Ainn comes to his senses, holding the stone in his hands. He is now calm and steady. His power is completely exhausted. The tension eases as everyone realizes the danger has passed, although Ainn apologizes. Shaken by how close they came to losing control, Ainn releases the last of his power and completely shatters the seal. The sudden surge caught everyone off guard. They were stunned to realize how much power it had consumed. Before anyone could stop him or ask even one more question, Ain calmly turns away, leaves the room, and closes the door behind her, leaving the others in shock. Ain meets Klon in the corridor, calls him, understands his choice, and reaches out her hand. He gently pushes it away. Although she wants him to stay, Ain calmly states that he is leaving and walks away alone. Ain promises to return and turns away. He approaches and gently kisses him on the cheek. She stops him for a moment. He, surprised, freezes, and she quietly sends him away without revealing her feelings. She smiles and tells him to travel safely, calling it a blessing. Aang gathers herself, smiles in response, and simply replies ready to go. She does not look away, watching him rush down the corridor, quietly wishing that he returns alive and unharmed. Aang does not look back. He focuses on maintaining balance and moves forward. Lloyd steps forward with a stern look. The knights lined up behind him. The mood changes rapidly. This is no longer a discussion, this is an order. Lloyd questions Aang's move, but his voice remains calm. Suddenly, the ground and walls are covered with cracks, and the building begins to shake. Lloyd steps forward and seems to break the tension. Aang meets his gaze, and the air around suddenly becomes hostile. AINN insists on leaving and does not back down, while Lloyd looks angrily and says that he is too important to risk. Then he strides forward with a sword in hand, ready to stop him if necessary. Lloyd rushed in to stop Aang, but the binding spell clicked. His body froze mid-strike. Even the knights froze with him, and he realized, this is a strong restraint, strong enough to pin Lloyd down and prevent him from intervening. Suddenly, Aang's power bursts out, going out of control, and he struggles for every breath. Lloyd stepped aside and let him pass, warning, do not forget the burden on your shoulders, but Aang still moved forward, deciding to act alone. Lloyd forces his body to break through the pressure, muscles tense, and magic bends around him. Cracks spread under his feet, but he keeps going and orders the knights to wait until Aang moves far enough away, even if the burden slows her down. Lloyd stands firm and breaks through. Aang rushes through the castle corridors, and Lloyd with a sharp smile looks at him and says that he is exceptional. Aang finally gets outside, gasping, stunned by how huge this castle is. Running, thoughts race to run further or look for a horse, and suddenly someone calls him from behind. A knight named Dill, riding a horse, stops Aang, offers to go together, and orders to mount the horse. Aang hesitates because he knows that Dill actually cannot stop him. But he admits that a little help would really change everything while they prepare to travel together. Dill openly chooses Aang instead of his native homeland and gladly writes this together with him. Not surprised, but accepting, and they move forward together. Dill sighs and explains that the fastest route to Magna is blocked by royal orders. And the usual journey would take too much time. Delay, I don't care. And then suddenly says there is another way out, hinting at a risky plan while time mercilessly runs out. Dill explains that the transport is reserved by royal decree. Aang suddenly realizes, as the heir to the throne, he formally has the right to cancel this reservation. Then it could be called an abuse of power, and he would be in serious trouble. The king passes judgment. Aang must be expelled from the royal family. Surrounded by everyone, he quietly accepts this. Exile is the price for acting on his own will. Aang, without hesitation, makes his choice using his power. He decides to move the royal water train. Dill hesitates but understands, and Aang smiles, grateful for the sincerity and ready to move forward. The water train finally sets off. The gears begin to turn. The city blurs outside the window, the train rushes across the bridge, and AINN is bursting forward with a single thought, to reach Magna as quickly as possible. The whole country is mobilizing. The sea turns into a battlefield. Warships fire continuously. Explosions thud into the water, and Sea Dragon breaks through the dense fire. Even under heavy attacks, it does not stop moving its magical stone, which shines on its forehead, while the battle intensifies fully. The commander gathers everyone for the final assault. The goal is clear, to break the magical stone and put an end to this. The losses are heavy. Their ranks have already thinned, and Sea Dragon rises again. Cannons pound relentlessly. The ship creaks and cracks under incredible pressure. If this continues even a little longer, they will simply be destroyed. Sea Dragon dashed forward, leaving behind only a blurred shadow. The commander does not hesitate and gives the order. The cannons immediately open fire, shooting at the dragon right in the middle of the charge, while water and smoke exploded around the ship. A cannon salvo breaks the magical stone of the Sea Dragon. The soldiers cheer joyfully, thinking it's over, but the commander remains alert. One dragon is down, and the other is still out there. The wounded Sea Dragon thrashes in rage as huge waves crash onto the ships. Even without its magical stone, it continues to attack, smashing the water and the sides of the ships with pure brute force and throwing the fleet into chaos because the battle is far from over. The Sea Dragon, driven to the limit, unleashes one last furious splash, dragging even sea into the whirlpool of chaos. As the waves almost swallow the soldiers, AINN realizes the truth too late. Another Sea Dragon lurks, and their fragile hope instantly turns into a new danger. The second Sea Dragon rises behind AINN, roaring, and lunges forward to kill. She does not retreat and rushes straight at him, while far away Chris thinks of her one last time, hoping his voice will reach her before the clash begins. Suddenly, a thick fog spreads over the sea, engulfing the battlefield and hiding the sea dragon from sight. Ain froze, the creature disappeared into the fog, and she realized something was wrong as the sound of movement approached around her. Suddenly, Chris appears before Ain, reaching out to her through the fog. He explains that the fog is an ability that obstructs vision, and Honor is stunned that he even came to the battlefield and insists that he immediately return to the capital. Ainn invokes the authority of the royal family and takes command on the battlefield. He loudly announces that he himself will fight Sea Dragon and orders everyone to support him. The soldiers freeze in shock, realizing that he is using royal authority to drive doubts deep inside and turn the tide of the battle. Aim cold-bloodedly commands everyone to obey, clearly making it understood that challenging the heir to the throne is not an option. As his authority strengthens, those nearby tense up, feeling the weight in his eyes. The soldiers hesitate, but under pressure are forced to act. They understand that Ain is no longer asking, but ordering. Aim steps forward like Sea Dragon and bursts onto the deck, without hesitation handing over control of the ships to Dill and going out alone against the monster. When the allies retreated and the crew was stunned in shock, Ainn declared himself the opponent of the dragon and decided to meet it face to face. Sea Dragon lunges straight at Ainn, opens its jaws, and Ainn reacts lightning fast, releasing a power that wraps the dragon's jaws with threads and stops the bite at close range. The impact shakes the ship. The dragon wildly struggles, knocks sailors off their feet, and crashes into the deck. But despite the chaos, Ainn holds firm, pins the monster in place, and turns its lunge into a direct confrontation of forces. Ain does not retreat when Sea Dragon charges forward, wrapping it with several phantom hands to fix its head and jaws in place. The dragon fights fiercely, but Ain tightens the bonds more and more, repelling it with harsh control, and his past training is evident as he throws the monster off balance and pushes it to the ground, stopping the advance. Aim dodges Sea Dragon's attack and notices a magical stone embedded in its forehead. He slows its movement with his ability, sneaks up and aims directly at the core, grabs it, activates the power, and begins to extract magic from the stone, gradually exhausting the dragon from within. Sea Dragon writhes in pain as its magic goes out of control. Aim relentlessly sucks power from the stone, causing a fierce backlash that tears the deck apart. The monster roars, its body collapsing from loss of strength. The spectators realize that the fight is coming to an end. Ainn understands that the power of the Sea Dragon is much deeper than he thought, and taking it completely will not be easy, but despite this he squeezes more and more out of himself, clinging to the monster as it dives underwater. Taking a risk, he throws a direct challenge to it and turns the fight into a battle of endurance to see who will fall first. Underwater is pushed to the limit. He burns both oxygen and magic just to survive under the pressure. When his strength fades, he feels the core of the Sea Dragon's power right in front of him. Even when his legs give way and he loses control, he refuses to stop and forces himself to reach it until everything ends. He forces the exhausted magic to return to the stone again, turning it into pure, raw power. He absorbs everything he managed to take, crossing his own limits. Only by willpower does he draw in even more magic, fueling himself for the final surge. He makes the last surge, pouring even more power into his body. The Sea Dragon attacks, but he rushes straight into the very hell of the battle, ignoring his wounds. Even when his strength wanes, he still moves forward. He is determined to finish the fight no matter the cost. Time breaks beyond his limits, and the last drop of energy slips away. The magic stone flies aside as his power fades. As he falls, the faces of everyone important to him come to mind. His name echoes, and the fight slowly quiets. Forcing himself to return to the fight again, he rises for the final strike, raising the blade with his last strength. He puts everything into it, knowing this strike will decide the fight with Sea Dragon. A loud roar rolled over the sea and shook the fleet. The soldiers were stunned with shock when they realized that Sea Dragon was still alive, and their gazes sharply returned to the battlefield. They feared what would come next. The battle finally ended. She rushes to him and holds him in a tight embrace. Exhausted and wounded, he releases the tension and relaxes in her arms, a moment quiet and filled with relief after the chaos. After the fight, Ainn opens his eyes. He is on board the ship, tightly bandaged and barely able to move properly. He jokes about his condition, but the truth about his injuries breaks through the jokes, and people are shocked. They realize how much he has exhausted himself. Ain explains that the body is numb but not permanently damaged. During the examination, they noticed that the ruby once given to him had shattered. It became clear that his survival was not just luck. But when they understood the price of the power that kept him alive, they realized it was the broken stone that held him alive, slowly saving him at the cost of its own energy. The realization that he almost died shocks everyone, especially when this truth finally sinks in. She gently tells him that he can no longer exhaust himself like this, holds his hand, and cries with relief. He apologizes with a slight smile, trying to lighten the mood, though wounded. The tension recedes, leaving a quiet moment of warmth after the danger has passed. She froze in disbelief at his indifferent attitude, and he stood puzzled in the endless night. Mood instantly lightens, everyone accepts the situation. As soon as he was convinced that he could walk, they quickly prepare everything for the return to the capital and set off forward together. He accepts the consequences of disobeying orders without any regret, satisfied that he helped, even if only a little. They move forward together, and he does not let go of his pride. Standing before a huge crowd, he calmly and resolutely faces what will come next. Under guard, he is returned to the capital and brought to the castle walls. He is exhausted, but still silently follows. In the throne room, he bows low and solemnly announces his return, once again standing before the king. In the presence of the entire court, the king solemnly addresses him. He proudly praises his deeds, declaring that the victory over the sea dragon is a great merit to the country. The hall responds with approving murmurs as his contribution is officially recognized. The court revealed all the true consequences of his actions. He not only defeated one of the two sea dragons, but also protected Magna, reducing the expected damage across the kingdom to almost zero, and the cost of this dragon alone exceeds the kingdom's budget. The king openly praises him and says that his deeds are those of a true hero. Next comes the story of the destruction in battle. The royal water train was nearly destroyed, several ships of the Gracier family were lost, and it was also revealed that someone helped Ains in his actions. Dill steps forward and openly admits his guilt, ready to accept all consequences without hesitation. Ains sharply interrupts the court and does not allow Dill to take the blame. He openly confesses that he used the royal order to force Dill to cooperate and insists that the punishment fall only on him before the king. He takes full responsibility and does not allow others to suffer because of his actions. Dill bows low before the king and takes the blame himself. He admits that he could not stop Ain, even though he was a marshal, and insists that he deserves punishment. When the tension reached its peak, the king suddenly laughed, stunning everyone. The king stopped everyone and announced that Dill would not be punished. He decrees that Ain's actions are justified by royal authority and removes serious charges against him. As a formality, Ain is sentenced to 2 months of house arrest in the castle, and the court calmly concludes. The king generously rewards the verdict. Chris is promoted to marshal for his service, and Lloyd is stripped of his position and reassigned as a personal guard. When the main verdict was announced, the king coldly dismissed further disputes and drove attempts to increase the punishment into a dead end, sharply closing the court session. Court has just ended, and Anise sees Klon alone on the balcony. She says she is not crying because she believes that Ain will return and keep his word. Calm, she smiles, and a moment quietly settles between them. Klon rushes to Ain, barking at him through tears, and from relief clings to his clothes. Having calmed down, she apologizes and explains that she went to visit Olivia. Ain gently soothes her, the tension melts, and they quietly remain close. Ain returns home, knocks on the door, and loudly tells his mother that it is him. When he goes inside, he freezes. A huge, twisted tree has filled the room. Vines and roots have filled the space, and he froze at what he saw. Ain is met in the room by his mother, enveloped in roots. She says that everything is fine, downplays the damage, and breathes out with relief he returned alive. Seeing his wounds, she gently checks him, and Ain assures her that now he is fine. Tears roll down even before he manages to notice it. Confused by the sudden feeling, he is gently pulled closer and held. In that silence, they quietly say that he is brave, and the tension he carried finally releases. When he is sure he is safe, he finally lets everything go. He is firmly held and calmed. Fear and pressure retreat from him, the duty is done, and for the first time he can allow himself to rest.